Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Wednesday. Let's pick up and listen and see what's going down today with the Diddy, dirty Diddy. Day 2 of Cassie's testimony. Y'all ready?
Let's put my lashes on today. Oh my god, that's it. I'm toast. I'm done. Your hair? I have such curly, frizzy hair that anytime there's weather like this, it's gotta go back.
So I guess the weather is bad today.
Subsequent indictment.
Good morning, good morning. Hey, Willie. Hey, Smoke Oklahoma. Hey, everybody. How y'all doing this morning? This Wednesday morning. Y'all got y'all coffees. Too early for tea. Too early for tea. Them nasty folks. They doing nasty stuff. Hey, David. Now, y'all know Diddy was grooming that girl. She was 19. He's going to try to make her a J-Lo. Yeah, he was going to replace her with J-Lo. She didn't measure up. She didn't have the wow effect that he thought she was going to have.
Yeah, Jen and Bob, good morning to both of you. Such an emotional day, graphic testimony, all of it continuing in just a little while from now. But Cassie Ventura's story, remember, it led to the arrest and subsequent indictment on federal charges for Sean Diddy Combs. And yesterday, she told it all in court. The 38-year-old R&B singer went into excruciating detail about Combs' so-called freak-offs. Ventura told the jury she met Combs at 19 years old and was just 22 when he asked her to participate in the first one, explaining that she felt humiliated and confused, but happy that he was satisfied. She said Combs dictated every aspect of those encounters, which sometimes lasted up to 72 hours, and recorded them as a form of blackmail. Ventura also testified about physical abuse. Back in 2023, Combs and Ventura reached an 8-figure settlement one day after she accused him of rape in a civil suit. The video of him kicking and dragging her down a hotel hallway is now considered a key piece of evidence for prosecutors. Defense lawyers, in the meantime, admitted Combs could be violent, but maintained that everything was consensual. Deanna Paul, a former New York prosecutor not associated with this case, weighed in on the testimony.
Who could have sex for 3 to 4 days straight? Where did you do that at? Lord, dude. I see why Meek Mills was sitting in that water that day.
And on the first day of this trial, Diddy told the judge that he was feeling a little bit nervous. He asked to be excused to use the bathroom, but overall we've seen that his demeanor is calm, cool, collected. He has been smiling. He even tried speaking to one of our reporters here in New York. Meanwhile, his lawyers will now try to challenge Ventura's credibility when cross-examining her. She takes the stand again in less than a half hour from now. Another day expected to be full of emotional testimony. And yes, she is visibly 8 months pregnant, and she is up there in the courtroom. Certainly emotions on many sides. Bob and Jen, we're live in Lower Manhattan. We'll send it back to you. So one of our reporters, Michelle Ross, was inside the courtroom. She's going in there every single day. He didn't actually speak to her. He made eye contact with her. She is 7 months pregnant. So he mouthed to her, "How are you? How are you feeling?" And that has sort of been his demeanor throughout this entire trial so far, a sort of confidence and trying to befriend everybody inside the courtroom, even making eye contact with the jury. And our reporter posted about it. It actually went viral. She really couldn't believe what she was seeing, that he was speaking to her, because this is a music mogul you're used to seeing on television and in the tabloids, and now he is part of this major federal case. So it's interesting, the jury is not supposed to take that into account or factor that into this case. We know, though, that the other day, Diddy's two daughters had to leave the courtroom because some of the testimony from a sex worker was so graphic, they couldn't bear to hear it any longer. They excused themselves not once, but twice at the most emotional parts of that. And this is something that we will expect to continue to see throughout this trial that, again, could be 8 weeks long. Certainly going to be a roller coaster ride for a lot of people involved, including Diddy's family, who has been here every single day. Thanks for having us, me. Okay.
You got to speak. Okay.
Thanks for having us, me. Thanks for having all of us. Those are a lot of follow-up questions.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Anything about Cassie's testimony as you took to the stand yesterday? Tell me, how's Mr. Combs feeling this morning? Anything to say at all?
We have all females attorneys. He's smart. He's a smart narcissist, ain't he?
Meet Sam. Every day starts with his morning routine. Like many of us, Sam...
questions. Was consensual. Deanna Paul, a former New York prosecutor not associated with this case, weighed in on the testimony.
Did we hear that already? This girl was 19 years old. Groomed her for 3 years.
Yeah, Jen and Bob, good morning to both of you. Such an emotional day, graphic testimony, all of it continuing in just a little while from now. But Cassie Ventura's story, remember, it led to the arrest and subsequent indictment on federal charges for Sean Diddy Combs. And yesterday, she told it all in court. The 38-year-old R&B singer went into excruciating detail about Combs' so-called freak-offs. Ventura told the jury she met Combs at 19 years old and was just 22 when he asked her to participate in the first one, explaining that she felt humiliated and confused, but happy that he was satisfied. She said Combs dictated every aspect of those encounters, which sometimes lasted up to 72 hours, and recorded them as a form of blackmail. Ventura also testified about physical abuse. Back in 2023, Combs and Ventura reached an 8-figure settlement one day after she accused him of rape in a civil suit. The video of him kicking and dragging her down a hotel hallway is now considered a key piece of evidence for prosecutors. Defense lawyers, in the meantime, admitted Combs could be violent, but maintained that everything was consensual. Deanna Paul, a former New York prosecutor not associated with this case, weighed in on the testimony.
Now, I wonder if he was going to be okay if some old-ass man grooms his daughters
As on the first day of
like
this
that.
trial, Diddy told the judge that he was feeling a little bit nervous. He asked to be excused to use the bathroom, but overall, we've seen that his demeanor is calm, cool, collected. He has been smiling. He even tried speaking to one of our reporters here in New York. Meanwhile, his lawyers will now try to challenge Ventura's credibility when cross-examining her. She takes the stand again in less than a half hour from now. Another day expected to be full of emotional testimony. And yes, she is visibly 8 months pregnant, and she is up there in the courtroom. Certainly emotions on many sides. Bob and Jen, we're live in Lower Manhattan. We'll send it back to you.
That we all saw happen. And so earlier today, we know that Sean Combs, he entered the court. He was wearing a gray sweater. He had a white dress shirt on. Cassie Ventura, just to sort of set the scene for her, she had on a light gray dress paired with a jacket. And so she arrived for her second day of court. And wanted to talk a little bit about what she talked about yesterday. Some of her key testimony that came yesterday, which was the 13th, she described those freak-offs. She detailed being coerced into those so-called drug-fueled sex acts orchestrated by Combs. She said that they began early in their relationship and they were often recorded by Combs without her consent. She said they were initially filmed with a video camera, later on personal devices. She testified she tried to often delete those videos from her devices when she could, and she asked Combs to delete his as well. Now, they did watch that video that everyone has sort of talked about. The jury watched that March 2016 surveillance video of Combs allegedly assaulting Ventura in the hotel hallway. Ventura said that she was trying to actually leave one of those freak-offs that had turned violent. and Combs allegedly grabbed, kicked, and dragged her. So if you've seen the footage of that, he's kind of in that towel when he comes out into the hallway. They're near an elevator. And we really got one of our first chances to see an extended look at that video. So there's 3 different cameras that actually were recording. And so what we'd seen before was an edited version of that video where they edited together those 3 different cameras. In this version that has now been made public, it is each one has the entire clip. So actually in the one that's right there in the main hallway where the elevator banks are, you eventually see a security guard who comes up and speaks to both Combs and Ventura at the time before they sort of move on. One of the more poignant moments of the testimony yesterday was when she was asked how often Combs beat her in a similar way to what happened there at the elevator bank. And she said, quote, "Too many to count. I don't know." And she became emotional during that moment there. And so that was sort of a synopsis of some of the testimony that happened yesterday. Several hours she testified again. Cassie Ventura back on the stand this morning. They did have a little bit of legal back and forths this morning before the testimony began. And it's something that actually could be significant. So I wanted to talk about it just a little bit because it's something that when the defense has their turn to respond, when they have their turn to question the witness in this case, Cassie Ventura, we are going to see this happen. So if you're going to be watching later on, I can give you a little preview of it now so you really have a good understanding of what you're going to be seeing there. We know that the defense attorneys want to introduce text messages between Diddy and Cassie during their cross-examination. Now, the prosecutors objected to that. They said they weren't given timely notice about the exhibits. So in other words, the defense thinks that they have text messages that may contradict some of the statements that Cassie has made. And so they want to bring those to court and they want to introduce them during their cross-examination. And the prosecutors are saying, hold on a minute. If you had this evidence, you should have told it to us before. Federal court, both parties expected to share those exhibits ahead of time, especially in criminal trials. Surprise evidence can be challenged. Maybe it's prejudicial. Maybe there's some kind of technicality that goes along with it. So the real-time defense strategy there is the defense is going to argue that they're reacting to Ventura's direct testimony, which justifies introducing new evidence on the fly. It can be an effective strategy if it is actually allowed. And here's why it could matter. If the texts contradict Ventura's account, they could become a cornerstone of the defense's strategy. And if they're not allowed, if they're excluded, the defense loses a potential way to cast doubt. Either way, it kind of sets the tone for what's going to happen today. Eventually, the judge did rule that the defense must turn over any exhibits, including text messages they plan to use in Cassie Ventura's cross-examination before questioning begins. So they can't just throw them out there when that happens. So the timing of that hasn't happened yet. We're expecting that cross-examination will happen a little later on today.
They're being sneaky.
And while the judge did sort of knock the defense a little bit there and what they were trying to do, they also noted that the prosecution should have raised the issue earlier, signaling a little bit of frustration on both sides for some of these delays that we've seen over the last few days. So that was a key piece of information that sort of came out before the day of testimony got started. So here's kind of what we're expecting today. Again, 10:30, Diddy trial underway, testimony from Cassie Ventura. She's back on the witness stand, and she has been testifying again for about 30 minutes this morning after testifying for several hours yesterday. So just want to give you sort of a list of what we expect to happen today. Right now, prosecutors are finishing up their direct examination. We expect that they're going to finish by lunchtime or midday, so maybe right after lunch, 1 or 2 o'clock, something like that. At that point, the defense will carry on their cross-examination, which is when we may see those text messages that they want to introduce that potentially could contradict some of what she has to say. Court will adjourn at 5 o'clock this afternoon. So we do have a long way to go before any of that actually happens. We are sort of getting our first little tidbits of information about what Cassie is testifying about this morning. And they are still focused on that 2016 hotel attack, the attack that was caught on video. and she is talking about how Combs threw a vase of flowers at her during that ordeal. And she said, quote, "I just remembered it coming toward me. I remember it hitting a wall." Earlier in the trial, a hotel security guard actually said he saw the damage when he arrived upstairs and told Combs he would have to pay for it. Cassie said she left the hotel in an Uber and went to her apartment, which was nearby. So, you know, it's interesting. Sometimes it's so obvious when you watch a video, you know, you kind of can surmise what happens. But when that is introduced in court, you have to talk and answer about each element of the video. Okay, so what happened here? There'll be a little bit of questioning about that for a period of time. Then they have to confirm that this is the next part of the video that's happening. And so that's why some of this really takes a long time. So they're just sort of really going over all the little details that have happened during that particular ordeal. Sort of backing up a little bit, talking about what she really spelled out yesterday. And this was kind of a part of what we thought the strategy might be from the prosecution, which is to lay out a very significant and detailed timeline of events, establish their relationship ahead of time, establish their connection. Cassie testified that she signed a 10-year, 10-album deal with Bad Boy Records. She was about 19 years old at the time in 2006. She described Combs as a larger-than-life entrepreneur and musician. She said that she greatly admired him. She testified that she felt pressured to participate in those sex parties, organized, and, you know, we've heard this term, the freak-offs. You got to say that over and over again. She said that she felt like she didn't have a choice, fearing emotional and physical consequence. So if you think about some of the words that we know,
he sound like a pimp.
Key element of her testimony: fear, no choice. Those are the type of things that sort of correspond with some of the charges that Diddy is facing. There's the element of psychological control. She said she was naive. She wanted to be a people pleaser, someone who feared rejection or angering Combs, and claimed that he exerted control over many aspects of her life, including her appearance and music career. She claimed that there were threats and blackmail, feared that being blackmailed with recordings of her participation in sex acts. She said Combs had the resources and the ability to leak that material, potentially online, potentially damaging her career, let alone embarrassing her. So fear, no choice. Another part of that element there, talking about the drugs and exploitation. She testified during the hearing yesterday, or during the testimony yesterday, that Combs provided drugs at those events, and that the freak-offs reportedly happened weekly for years. So weekly, not just after big events or 4 days, you know, award shows or something like that. She said they often lasted hours, and she was too scared to stop even when she wanted to. Then she sort of talked a little bit about her career and how these parties, these freak-offs, and her relationship all was woven together with some of the ambitions she had with her career. She said she couldn't release another album because Combs controlled the timing of those decisions. Again, remember, he's a big music producer, music mogul, of course, and she said much of her time was actually spent at parties or recovering from them. And she talked about the emotional toll and trauma. She said the frequency of abuse and drugs blurred her memories of the events. She expressed feelings of humiliation, worthlessness. Those are some of the things that she testified. And really, all accounts are that she was very calm and composed during her testimony, had to stop a few times just to gather her emotions, but at the same time was measured, and by all accounts seemed to be a very effective witness for the prosecution. One breakout quote that sort of stuck with me as I was watching all this, she said, quote, "It just felt like all I was good for. It just felt like it was all I was good for to him," talking about those freak-offs. And she said, quote, "I was humiliated." So I've been talking for a little while here. I know that we have a lot of people who are tuning in and listening in to our coverage of the Diddy trial, which is underway here in Lower Manhattan. And we do have a few headlines that have already come out from the testimony today. One of them, just a few minutes ago, Cassie said she took the selfies in an Uber after the hotel attack and wore sunglasses to hide a black eye. So here we have her testifying about the domestic violence there. And she said a friend later reacted with concern, saying she'd seen similar injuries before. So there you have what is alleged to be a pattern of abuse. Now, Cassie says Combs threw a vase at her during her 2016 hotel incident. Quote, "I just remember it coming toward me. I remember it hitting a wall." And she began testifying at 10 o'clock. So she's been on the stand now for about 40 minutes. Any questions that we have there that we can sort of put in? I know people are chiming in all kinds of different ways. It's interesting. I was out doing some stuff with my kids yesterday afternoon, and I was listening in on someone's conversation, and they were talking about the trial, because everybody's talking about the trial. There's so much interest in this, not just here in New York City, but really all around the world, across the country, the music industry. What's going to happen to Diddy? And people are frustrated that there are no cameras in the courtroom, when it seems like there should be cameras. Every big trial that we get, it seems like there are cameras in the courtroom. Keep in mind, a lot of those cases are state cases, so cases that are handled within the jurisdiction of a certain county. The judges in those cases have a lot more discretion about whether or not cameras can be allowed in the courtroom. Federal court, pretty much all across the board, there are no cameras that are allowed in the courtroom. It looks like in this particular set, there are a group of reporters who are in there who are allowed to have their phones or their computers, and they are providing sort of real-time updates. Those updates, though, are pretty much coming out in the form of, just sort of like wire updates that we'll get from the Associated Press or from Reuters or, sometimes TMZ, other sources like that. So that's kind of what we're seeing. Another brief bit of information that we just actually got from within the courtroom. Jurors were shown photos of Cassie's swollen lip as she testified about the hotel attack. And that's where she's talking about how she took those selfies in an Uber on the way home after that incident. And she said that her friend called police, but she declined. So keep that in mind, because the defense will probably bring that back up, that she had the opportunity at that time to go to the authorities, and it appears that there was a different approach that she took. And she said, in that moment, I didn't want to hurt him in that way. I wasn't ready. So that's kind of what she's saying there. So if we can kind of take a look at maybe one of the larger pictures of why her testimony is so important, because Cassie is going to be not just one of the first witnesses, but really a key witness to what happens with this case, because in some ways, she is going to attempt for the prosecution, to establish this sort of pattern of activity, this activity that prosecutors allege goes beyond just sexual fantasies and into criminal activity. So again, Sean Combs charged with sex trafficking, racketeering, which are those RICO violations. That's why they put away the mob. Drug distribution, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to commit sexual exploitation, and transportation to engage in prostitution, which is also known as the Mann Act violation, MANN Act violation. All federal charges, many of which carry significant prison time, the possibility of life in prison if convicted on the most serious of those charges. Okay, so how does Cassie's testimony support those charges? We can kind of go through them here. Sex trafficking. So the legal definition of sex trafficking is using force, fraud, or coercion to compel someone into commercial sex acts.
He's a trafficker.
Cassie's testimony, if you want to look at it this way, supports this by alleging she was coerced into freak-offs without true consent. So that's kind of the baseline of where her testimony is there. She feared retaliation, blackmail, or physical harm. Combs allegedly used his power and resources to compel her behavior. Drugs were involved, impairing her ability to consent. So those are some of the elements that prosecutors will say supports their charge of sex trafficking. Next charge, racketeering and RICO violations. The legal definition of that, operating an enterprise through a pattern of criminal activity. So when you think about racketeering and you think about RICO violations, you usually think about how it's what they use to take down gangs or the mob, because they are operating an enterprise through a pattern of criminal activity. Maybe it's loan sharking, maybe it's prostitution, maybe it's gambling, maybe it's drugs, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. That's racketeering. That's what Diddy is faced with. How does Cassie's testimony tie into those racketeering charges? That's the question. Well, Cassie's account contributes to this by alleging, if you want to look at it this way, a systematic, years-long pattern of abuse. Sex acts were organized, scheduled, and controlled. Combs used his record label, personal staff, and reputation as part of the structure of those particular alleged crimes, and other victims and witnesses may testify, maybe down the road to similar behavior, helping prosecutors potentially show that pattern. So that's where the racketeering kind of comes into it. It's all tied to those free costs. It's all tied to those sex acts. Drug distribution, Ventura testified that Combs provided drugs during the event. Ties into the possibility that there was maybe more going on there. Obstruction, threats, blackmail, allegations Combs threatened to leak videos, images. Those are some of the things that she talked about. Obstruction of justice. So if that was done to prevent her from coming forward, you can see how that could fall into that obstruction of justice category there. Witness tampering or intimidation under federal law. All those things are crimes. So again, Cassie's testimony, a baseline for some of these allegations that the prosecutors have laid out here. And then finally, let's take a look at the transportation for prostitution, also known as the Mann Act. So if Ventura and other women were transported across state lines to participate in non-consensual sex acts under pressure or coercion, it may constitute a Mann Act violation. All right, so the Mann Act is a very serious act, very serious crime, and so the testimony referenced repeated organized events, potentially implying that this may have happened multiple times over years. So that's where we can sort of see that prosecutors want to establish Cassie for their larger overall case. And if they can establish a criminal enterprise was run and controlled by Combs and use Ventura's testimony as a foundation and example of some of those methods. The opportunity to show intent, coercion, and a pattern of control. And so you have her story, though. Okay, how do you corroborate what she's saying? So that's a key element that we're going to have to hear over the next several witnesses. Certainly we have the video that is going to play into it. Visual, when you see that, it's sort of hard to not have a reaction one way or the other. But certainly those videos are going to be a part of it. The text messages, we know that the defense wants to introduce text messages that they say will not corroborate her story, that actually may show a different way of looking at it. And talking about the defense strategy, it looks like the defense will almost surely attack Cassie's credibility and suggest that she was motivated by money or revenge. So, there's going to be two sides to every story. For all those different things that I just laid out here, all the reasons why Cassie's testimony may support the allegations of racketeering, why it may support the allegations of obstruction and blackmail or transportation of prostitution, the defense is going to have its chance to ask its own set of questions. And they're going to argue that maybe there's an absence of force or fraud. Where's the evidence of that? What do you have to show that this wasn't something that everyone was just sort of going along with, being a part of, and maybe you enjoyed the vacations, maybe you enjoyed traveling? Not my words, the defense's words. And of course, paint the events as part of a consensual adult relationship and lifestyle. So it's maybe not what you're into, but that's what Diddy was into, and just because you don't like it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a crime. So here we go. That's what we're looking at here.
That's a lot. He cooked, y'all. He cooked.
Yeah, the question really is, Cassie is detailing the attack, the 2016 attack, the one that is in that video which really kickstarted the momentum toward the criminal charges in this case. The jury is potentially seeing that video for the first time. That's part of the reason why out of a pool of 400 jurors, 12 people and a couple alternates were finalized, because maybe they really are the ones who...
Hold on.
And so
I'm live,
when
baby.
she's
What's
describing her ordeal throughout being in that video, being the victim of this domestic violence,
What's wrong?
the jurors are really going to have to weigh how significant that video, that incident is to these larger crimes. So if you have Diddy's defense saying, okay, he committed an act of domestic violence, and maybe it is despicable, and he's apologized for that, and there is this video, but this video is not a RICO charge. This video does not prove that there is some of the other elements, that this video does not prove that there is a transportation of prostitution across state lines. So certainly the video is a powerful piece of evidence for the prosecution. It's why they put it up at the very front of their case. They showed it early, and they will likely show it often, at least throughout the course of today. As a member of the jury, it's hard not to watch that and have some kind of emotion one way or the other, but you have to separate those emotions to what the letter of the law will state. So right now they're hearing the evidence. Right now they are hearing her story. Down the road, a couple weeks from now, that video will be referenced again at the very end of this case as the prosecutors wrap up their argument, and then the judge will give them their instructions on how they are to rule on these different charges. And so that's when the video will come back into play, whether or not they believe that that was the significant piece that can establish the larger crimes that are alleged to have taken place here. So the video is going to be important, and when you hear a woman who is the victim of domestic violence speak about it, it's one thing. But when you hear how this particular incident is supposed to spell out to all these other charges for a case of this magnitude, it could take on a different meaning. So that's why we have to watch what happens there very closely. So let's see. Do we have a new update here? Yeah, it looks like another update that's just come out here is we're getting more of the digital evidence. And so digital evidence, what do we mean by that? That's simply just text messages. So, a lot of how many cases have you watched, whether you're watching one of the true crime shows where the phones are what put people away? Where your location, your data, your text messages, your Google searches, that digital footprint is something that is hard to erase. You think you might erase it, but you didn't erase it. And so Combs and some of the text messages are now being utilized by the prosecution. Eventually they could be used by the defense as well, but certainly at this point in the case, they are being utilized by the prosecution. So we got this little bit of evidence that came out today, or at least as part of her testimony. Combs kept texting Cassie after she left the LA hotel following the attack. That's what she's testifying to. She said he claimed police were about to arrest him. And when she refused to accept his phone calls, Combs told her that if she didn't pick up the phone, she'd never hear my voice again. That's what she said. Jurors were then shown pictures of Cassie and Combs at a movie premiere soon after the March 2016 hotel attack. Cassie described bruises on her body that were visible in the photographs and said she was unable to cover up all the damage with makeup, so she wore dark sunglasses to cover her black eye. So kind of getting into that element of physical abuse, and maybe according to what the prosecutors are trying to lay down is a pattern of someone who felt that she was living in fear and didn't have a choice. So that's a lot of this is kind of going in the direction that we thought it would go in terms of how the prosecutors would try to lay out this case and establish this relationship between these two people, and then create this timeline of when things happened, how often they happened, whether they were scheduled, and how it sort of played into the larger course of the case down the road. And that's the question. The question is, isn't this just domestic violence? And so, I mean, you're getting right to the heart of what the defense is going to say. I mean, there's kind of two ways to look at it, where certainly it is certainly it is a domestic violent incident, and nobody is sort of arguing that. But what the prosecutors will say is, this was this was an act of domestic violence that happened during the course of these larger crimes, because when she ran into the hallway in that video from 2016, she was actually trying to escape or leave one of those freak-offs that was going on in that hotel. And it was the freak-off, it was this party where there were allegedly drugs, where there were these sort of illicit sex acts, where things were happening for not just for like an hour, but for hours and days. That is the crime. And what you saw was a part of that. And what you saw was if there's an action, that's the reaction. That's the consequence of some of that. So you can look at it in the individual, in the micro level, that yes, that was an act of domestic violence, allegedly. But if you want to take the wider view is that is the only one of the main reasons why we know about this is because of that. But the defense will argue the complete opposite. The defense will argue that, look, that was a one-off incident. That was, if you want to charge him with that crime, charge him with that crime. But that's not the crime why we're here.
Yes,
so again,
it is.
Cassie has returned to the witness stand today. It is 10:53 here on this Wednesday morning.
Listen. If somebody is peeing in your mouth and you don't want them to pee in your mouth, and you leave, and the pimp, the trafficker chase you down the hall with a towel, kick and beat you and drag you back in there so that this person that's sitting on that bed can continue to piss in your mouth, that is trafficking. You are forcing me to continue. See, she need to say it like that. I didn't want the pee in my mouth no more. And he forced me. He threatened me. He beat me. And he dragged me back in there to continue what I did not want to do. Okay?
Sure is a Wednesday morning. Raining down there at the courthouse in Lower Manhattan, Pearl Street, the location, federal court of so many high-profile cases in New York City history. And Diddy is certainly no larger figure that we've seen over the last 30 years or so now. He's been, front and center when it comes to music, when it comes to media, when it comes to really celebrities in New York City, in the headlines for good reasons, for all the wrong reasons. Certainly he's had his brushes with the law over the years. This case, though, of course, the most significant, and we are now in day 3 of this trial. Actually, it's going to be the full day 3. Things kind of got kicked off a little late on the first day on Monday, but certainly this is the full day of this trial. Cassie is back on the witness stand. We think that probably in the next 30, 40 minutes, they're going to take a break. We may get another update about what transpired during the early part of the proceeding today. That could come in at any moment. So we're definitely staying tuned for that. But once they take a break, they may break for lunch, probably around 12. At some point during the afternoon, the defense will get their turn to cross-examine, because, you're probably familiar with how the court system works, but it's the prosecution who gets their chance first. So they get their chance to ask all their questions, to lay out their narrative. After that, which could take hours, that could take the whole day. So it took the better part of yesterday afternoon, and it's going to take most of this morning for prosecution to finish their questioning. Then the defense will have their chance to question her. That could take the better part of another couple hours. And after that, the prosecution will have a chance to redirect. So they'll get a chance to ask again to try and clarify. So if the defense leaves a cliffhanger here, then the prosecution will get to come back and ask again about those specific things, and they can kind of go back and forth until one side says, no further questions, Your Honor, no further questions, Your Honor. Okay, Cassie, you're dismissed. But that hasn't happened yet, and we're not close to that. Cassie is 8 months pregnant, 7 or 8 months pregnant. She is on the witness stand, very much pregnant. Her third child. She has. She's married now, and not married to Diddy, but that her husband is with her. And there was a debate yesterday about whether he would be allowed to be in the courtroom. And so our understanding is that, yes, he is allowed, but certain parts of her testimony, he may be asked to step outside because it's possible that the defense may eventually call him to the stand to try and downplay some of what she is saying. So we'll see how that works out. But that's certainly a part of what we can expect here. So that's what we're looking at so far this morning. I know people have been just fascinated with this case, and how could you not be? How could you not be fascinated with what this is? There's so many elements here. There are elements of the Me Too movement that are happening here. That maybe someone in a position of power like this, will there be justice for someone like Cassie who says that she's the victim, or are the charges being overplayed, or is there a politicization of the charges where the prosecutor is feeling pressured to bring some kind of charges because of this video? Did this previous civil lawsuit from 2023 that was already settled with Cassie, is that going to play a role? So many questions here, and we're just getting started because Cassie's testimony isn't going to be all the testimony. It's going to be the first bit of this trial. Then there are going to be other witnesses who are going to try to corroborate her story. And then we're going to get into other elements of this case. We haven't heard from any of the law enforcement officers who investigated this case. Prosecutors are just one half of this. Of course, the FBI officials who were there actually on the ground doing some of the investigations, gathering the evidence, they're going to take the stand as well. So we're in for a long haul here. 2 questions.
Why did Cassie stay 10 years?
Right.
And secondly, could Cassie possibly implicate herself if she's part of the street box?
So a couple questions. Why did Cassie stay for 10 years? You know, that's going to be the heart of what the defense is going to argue, that this was a 10-year relationship. It was turbulent, to say the least.
Are they forgetting that this girl has already said that she's tried to leave before, and he grabbed his gun and had one of his bodyguards or whatever they are, whoever he was, booty buddies or whatever, you know, go hunt her down? Are they forgetting that? He kicked in doors, not doors, doors. He kicked in doors. I mean, why are they acting like, you know, they don't, you know, because I could say that. Why you stay so long? Girl, I would have left. He'd have never found me. I'd have changed mine then. But she has attempted before. She said no before. And he's pimpish. His mama is madam-ish-y, you know? And he went and got her. He went and got her. Hawked her down. Beat her. Yeah, what's that Stockholm Syndrome stuff? Well, this is like the girl that was kidnapped by the long, you know, and she was in denial. Once somebody tried to help her, she was saying that wasn't her name, and you know, conditioned. Yeah, he got her when she was 19 years old. She was a kid. He groomed her. Then he pimped her. Stop playing dumb, people. Stop asking stupid questions. That's just my opinion.
She says that Combs was consumed by violence and had an obsession with voyeurism, which was sort of at the heart of what was happening with these sex parties. But the defense will say that she was a willing participant. That's probably what they're going to argue. They're going to say that she was wanted to be a musician. She wanted to be a singer. She was a singer. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Records. She was 19 years old. She was 2006. She was an adult, and so she wasn't underage when she signed that deal. She described Combs as a larger-than-life entrepreneur and musician that she admired. And when you think about who Diddy is, he is someone who's been in a position of power, been in a position of influence. You know, he's a billionaire, or has a lot of money. Was someone who people wanted to be around. And so their argument is going to be that this was not a forced relationship. She was not being kidnapped. She was not being held against her will. Look at this. She was in a photo here. Look at this. She attended an event here. Hey, she accepted a gift. Hey, she was on a vacation. So that's going to be part of it. And eventually it's going to be up to the jury about whether or not they believe that. Now, keep in mind, she's not going to be the only one who testifies. Cassie is the one alleged victim who is testifying publicly. There were supposed to be 3 unnamed victims who will also testify, apparently under similar circumstances. One of them, at least earlier this week, they had lost touch with, so they haven't been able to be in contact with that person. So it's unclear if there's going to be all 3 who will testify or if it's just going to be 2. But certainly that will be a part of this pattern. Cassie lays the foundation, and then you have these other roots that will grow from it. At least that's what the prosecution is hoping. Will she implicate herself in the criminal activity? Hard to say. Certainly she's not charged with anything at the moment. But you could see when the defense has their turn that could be a part of the strategy. Certainly when you're a defense attorney and you're asking questions of someone who is clearly a part of a domestic violence incident that you acknowledge pretty much is a domestic violence incident that Diddy has apologized for, that said he's disgusted with himself about, you have to be careful in how you approach that witness, just in terms of the sensitivity, not just because of who she is, but because of how the jury would feel about that. Certainly you want the jury to feel for your client, and you don't want the jury to hate your client. And so when you question a witness like that, you have to be careful in how you approach it. So could she implicate herself? You know, I don't know. It's possible. Yeah, so we're watching it all closely. Looks like we got some people gathered outside. Not sure if this is part of the case. It is raining, and it looks like half of those people don't have umbrellas, so they could be waiting for their Ubers to show up or something like that. But we know right now it's 11:02. We've been going for a good little bit now, 30, 40 minutes. Let me just check just to make sure we don't have any absolute updates that are coming out of the courtroom, because we are staying right on top of this. And we want to make sure that if something happens, we got it for you right away. But doesn't look like anything at this moment. Sometimes they take these breaks and the reporters kind of unload all the information that they were able to gather during the testimony. Cassie's been on the stand now for just over an hour and 3 or 4 minutes. She's expected to continue testifying this morning as a witness for the prosecution. In the afternoon, we're expecting that the defense will be able to cross-examine her, and they have already said that they want to introduce text messages that they believe will contradict some of her well, you figure if they are introducing those text messages, it could potentially contradict some of her previous testimony. So we'll see about that. As we said at the outset, as we were covering this, during these first few days, you're going to hear headlines and you're going to see things that are going to be shocking because of the nature of this case, and off we go. So let's keep it tuned in. Let's see, the noon show here on Fox 5. You can watch that, and of course, we're going to have our live camera up outside the courthouse all the time. All right, have a good one.
about that.
Okay, Zane. Please move. Zane, 11:05. Yeah. Just move. Now.
So I need your help.
Okay.
So I will bring the camera that way.
Yeah.
Just so that it's close to you.
This one?
There we go. Thank you.
Okay.
Y'all please hit the like button. Hi, Christy. Everybody, even those that's in the bushes, good morning. Please hit the like button. You can stay in the bushes and hit the like button. I'm not saying come out wherever you are. But good morning, team. I'm trying to understand how they justify this type of use. Modern day pimping. Because that's all it is here, modern day pimp.
Support pets and get your furry best friend approved officially as an emotional support animal.
It's so easy, a dog could do it. Step 1.
Take the clip.
And for everybody who thinks that there's nothing wrong with it, he really didn't do nothing wrong, would you want your daughter or son to be pimped out in this manner? Would you be okay with that? You know, let's just be honest. Would you be okay if your daughter or son was pimped out or handled or coerced, engaging with a pimpish-like man that's almost 20 years older? Would you be okay with that? I want to know if Diddy would be okay if his 3 daughters were being pimped out like that, handled like that, pissed on like that. Would he be okay? Now, You know, we could all say, oh, I wouldn't have done that. You know, and I probably would not have. But, you know, I wouldn't have got caught up in the fame like that. Hey, V Money. Good morning. But let's just keep it real. If you wouldn't want that to go down with your kids, then you know what he's doing is wrong. And we got to stop making excuses. Probably would have put him in a blackout mode. You know, you blacked out. They had to kill everybody. Yeah, we would have snapped. Everybody around him, wherever he went, would be sprayed, as we put it, down. Yeah, let her go. Yeah, come home. Come home. Tell him to come get you from here. You know how we do. Tell him to bring his ass here. Dirty Diddy ass here. What you hit her for? Yeah, she don't belong to you. Yeah, you know. He need a ignorant mama. Yeah. That's what he needed. He needed for somebody to really check his ass. I don't give a damn how much money you got. I don't give a fuck what your name is. She rests to go. She was okay with it. She changed her mind. What the fuck are we doing? That's what she need. Y'all know y'all wouldn't have been okay with that. Shit. No, sir. No, sir. And I'll be sure coming for his. Let's be clear. Yeah, I'm trying to make me some oatmeal. I'm trying to make me some oatmeal. Work and listen to this. Let me tell you something. I'll be sure he coming for his. Make no mistake about it. Al B said, I be damn. Yeah. He said he coming for his. And he was subpoenaed to be a witness. I hope Quincy provided his daddy with the memoirs that was on that computer. I hope he, cause he think his son has. Do y'all know that? Hold on, while we waiting for them. Do y'all know that I'll be sure thinks that his son has that Stockholm syndrome, where he kind of defends Diddy, his stepdaddy. Is it? No, they didn't even stepdaddy. He didn't marry her either. While old Cassie was jealous of Kim, hell, he ain't married neither one of them. Hell, he ain't married nobody, cause he in love with Jay-Z. I was supposed to say that. And hell, the way who she should have been jealous of is Meek Mills. Is that his name? The way he upped the shit out of him and wouldn't get her to Peter. I'd have been like, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. Why? That sound intense. I can't get no, bang, 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 bang. I can't get none of that. So who she should have been mad at and jealous of is Meek. Cause he beat them cheeks. Y'all know I ain't no good. He beat the hell out of them cheeks, didn't he? Barbie. Yeah. He couldn't do her because he enjoyed doing men. Let's keep it real. Shit. That's our problem. We be mad at the wrong person, you know, taking it out on the wrong person. Shit. Kim Porter was still, sound like she was still keeping in contact with LB. Shit. You was looking at the wrong place. Baby, and they say, Kim Porter say, Jay-Z didn't want to do a threesome with her and Diddy. He just wanted Diddy. He just wanted 30 Dick Diddy. Dicky Diddy. Yeah. So, shit. Cassie, you be mad at the woman. Hell, you should have been mad at the men. What you mean? Why he always over here? That's what she should have been saying. Yeah. And Gene be exposing all the dirt, don't it? What's that man? Barrows? Somebody who's suing Diddy? I will bring that upload too. Hell, I need to create a thumbnail with him and Diddy. He said they were business partners with Bad Boy, and they were lovers. They was boyfriend and boyfriend. So that's why his ass be sitting over in the corner. And guess what? What's her name? Cassie, baby. I ain't trying to make you cry on the stand again, because they said your ass was crying your ass off. Let me explain something to you. When he had you in them freak offs and shit in the corner, he wasn't being turned on by you. No. That's why he asked you to have that escort to send if I like the performance. Now, he was saying on the cool, if I like that thing. So when he had you send a message to boy to send a picture of that thing, that dang line, and then asked him to come back, yeah, he had to see that thing to see if he played with himself, if it was going to release something. Y'all know I ain't no good. So, he needed to know if that man was going to turn him on. He didn't care shit about you. Let's just be clear. On so many levels. Okay? Okay? You wasn't it. You wasn't it in the music. So, in his mind, with his, he done make a deal with the devil. In his mind, he's saying, I can't do shit with her with no music. Her music don't turn me on. Her music don't make me pop, make it And hell, her sex may be good if I was into her. Women. So say. Yeah. So her performance is good enough to pimp. Okay? But as far as turning him on, you said you did it because it made him happy. No, not you, boo. Move over. Oh, boy, the big fine buff with the big old thing. That dong, 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 dong. That's what turned him on. So I'm sorry AunTeaFee had to be the one to tell you, baby. You never did it for him. Music-wise and sex-wise. You was just a front. You was just his trophy on his arm. You was good for pictures. And I'm going to be honest with you. Pause. Now, you wasn't the cutest on the picture. Now, you favor J-Lo. I will give you that. And I know that he was in love with Kim Porter and J-Lo. J-Lo saw some shit that she said, oh, no, fuck that. Oh, boy, please. I'm J-Lo. I'm Jenny from the block, baby. I don't have to go out like that. Okay. Yeah. She said, I like a bad boy, but not a gay boy. Ooh. Let me... I knew I was going to go too far. She said, I like a bad boy, not a gay one. What the hell are we doing? When y'all start doing that? Huh? What the fuck is going on? Let me get my oatmeal. Order my oatmeal right here. And baby. Oh yeah, and oh yeah. I got another bombshell I'ma try to bring out, but I'll be sure he ain't gonna play with his. He said, I'm coming for mine and I'ma testify, and I hope he Quincy ain't that far out of whack and gave his daddy some info that he can use when he take his butt on that witness stand. Because I'll be sure coming for his. He said, I'll be down. I'm going to show y'all in just a minute. It's saying she on the stand right now. She on the stand. Somebody said she was eating the feces too. So he tried to do everything R. Kelly. So he gonna go to jail just like R. Kelly. I was hitting that bed, baby, saying, come here. Come on. Come to daddy. Let's make some music together.
Yeah, no, we watched that one. It's fine. Yeah. So that's me.
My feelings would be so hurt to find out that I was never able to please my man. How's he like men? That's a whole different type of blow. I mean, ooh. But y'all say pause. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than, ooh, I don't know. Heartbreak. That's a whole different type of heartbreak. Ain't nothing you could do to please him, cause he like men. And here she is thinking she turning him on in the corner, and it's that thing line. And then the guy really liking her. You know, he wanted to really date her. In 10 years, baby. She ain't got enough backbone. You could not be playing with my music career for 10 years and you putting other people on and not putting me on, and I'm jumping through them type of hoops. Me and every friend I got will be tagging your ass. I mean, beating you down. And you can tell she ain't black. You see him and Mary J. Friendship, love ship, sex ship, whatever. It didn't last as long. She was seeing other people, and she probably hurt her foot and her knees and shit. Kick, because you know Mary J can kick her butt out. That's why every last one of her performances is she. Baby, she probably kicked a knot in his head. Cause we know Mary can kick. And they say she had a AB by him too. And so that's the difference. When she saw he was working with other people and she was flipping over and turning tricks for him in the bed, and he was helping other people and pausing on her, she got her ass up out of there, didn't she? She said, I don't understand this process. I ain't going along with all of this right here. And she got her ass up on out of that. That's what Cassie should have did. Because one thing is for sure. We know Mary know how to, because as you know, she got them boots on with them high heels. You know, we know she know how to kick them. And she get off. Didn't she fight Jodeci? Yeah, Mary said, I'll put them hands on you. You ain't finna play with me. You know, that's when she wasn't so cute and so lavish, you know. She was real kind of ghetto back then at that time. Yeah, she was like, I ain't finna play with you. You playing in my face. You playing in my face. And so she threw his ass to deuces. That's what rain on me like, Mary. She'll kick that and start doing that Mary J. walk. You know how she do. Mary said, Diddy, Puffy. He was Puffy back then, you know. Who you, nigga? And you got me playing with these little boys. Because y'all know them Lil' Kims and Mary J's and Faith and stuff was being pimped to play with the little boys, breaking them off. Didn't Mary have one? Mary had a little lamb. I wasn't supposed to say that either. Lord. Me and my mouth and me and my memory. Y'all know she had one of them little old boys. Broke him off some real proper like. Had him looking for in the daylight with a flashlight. He said she had the head for him and some weed. He said, that's all I need. And they went some rounds. But she didn't have them going rounds for days at a time, you know. But they was playing with them little boys. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, haunting. Mary was saying, piss in my mouth. Diddy, you done lost your fuck in mine. In my mouth. Hold on, let me see.
want this?
What about red?
Okay. You need another plastic bag?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now it's so pretty. Yeah. Is Alex in the front?
No, it's just me.
Okay.
Yeah. I just finally got warm. I was cold.
Yeah, I'm still cold.
So I put on after the arrivals, I went and put on a sweatshirt.
Good. I need to buy
Like my hands, I can't get my hands dry. That's what I don't like. Where's Hussein? Coffee?
He's taking a break.
I want to ask.
She said, stop playing.
He's in the car.
Do you guys get to go down at lunchtime? No, it stays up even at lunchtime? Wow.
Basically 20%.
Wet this morning.
Yeah, let's go with
Yeah, I'm so done with it. I ordered an umbrella. It gets delivered to my house today. Yeah. I just like, it's about time. I don't know what I was waiting for.
Hussein said we have a tip. Is that true?
You may have something like that in the basement unless it was thrown out. But you're not allowed to put that here. You know?
Use the umbrella.
The hard part with that is you need a big vehicle to get that here. Because yeah, it folds down to this, but it's like 7 feet tall, you know, it's like not many cars you can get that in.
I see.
I think I remember us trying to take it somewhere because it said Reuters on it.
Yeah.
But we couldn't get it in the cab.
Oh, I see. I was there for a while at the corner that you can never see, but they picked me up.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I'll be there.
In New York City, where the star prosecution witness took the stand today in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking and racketeering trial. Before we go any further, a warning for you. It's late. We still got to give you the warning, though. What you're about to hear, graphic and disturbing. There's a lot that we can't even say on TV. And even for a case packed with shocking details, what came out today, it really was next level. Cassie Ventura, Diddy's on again, off again girlfriend of many years. She's married now. She's due to give birth any second. So prosecutors did not waste any time getting her story to the jury. She was up on the witness stand first thing this morning, just minutes after being sworn in. She was shown an image from that 2016 hotel surveillance video of Diddy beating her. You see, we've got the courtroom sketches here. She was asked to describe it, and she said, "That is me and Sean. We were having an encounter. We call it a freak-off." And those freak-offs are what Cassie said became her only job. Cassie told the jury that Diddy forced her into drug-fueled sex acts with male escorts while he watched, sometimes sitting in the corner and masturbating. Through tears, she said she took drugs to numb herself, ecstasy, cocaine, and ketamine, all of it allegedly supplied by Diddy. She said the freak-offs included as many as 4 male escorts at once and typically lasted 36 to 72 hours. The longest, she said, the longest freak-off that she says she was forced to perform in lasted 4 days. She said they took place around the world, from New York to Miami to Spain to even Turks and Caicos. And at every stop, Cassie said the hotel rooms were stocked by Diddy's staff with baby oil, condoms, and drugs. And she says that these hotel rooms, this is disgusting, the hotel rooms were left covered in baby oil and covered in blood and covered in urine.
Blood.
Cassie told the jury that the freak-offs made her feel disgusting and humiliated and worthless. But she said she couldn't say no because she says Diddy threatened to release videos of the freak-offs with her in them. And through it all, she said Diddy was in control of every aspect of her life, where she lived, what she wore, right down to the color nail polish that she was allowed to wear. And if she stepped out of line, she said that he took her keys and her phone, and often she testified that he did far worse than that. She again became emotional, describing what she said was near constant physical abuse. This is a quote. She said, "He would knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head." And this is what she talked about all day long in this New York City courtroom. We've got News Nation national correspondent Caitlin Becker. She was in court for all of it. She joins me now live from outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Again, cameras not allowed, so Caitlin is going to be the one to explain to us what this was actually like inside the courthouse today. Some big bombshells. I know, Caitlin, some of it is literally too graphic to talk about on TV. I mean, some of it is totally disgusting. What were the highlights for you today?
Yeah, Brian, it's really hard to even hit on some of the more salacious, shocking, vulgar moments that she described on the stand, because they are too inappropriate in a lot of ways to discuss in front of really anyone here. I mean, you look at these sketches of Cassie. She's sitting on the stand, 9 months pregnant, taking kind of deep breaths as she answers more of these salacious and tough questions. You know, she did, and again, you said it, but I need to reiterate, these will be disturbing descriptions that I will repeat that she said on the stand. At one point, she said that a male escort had urinated in her mouth and she actually choked on it. And it was at that point someone in the courtroom actually had to walk out of the door there while Diddy sat at the defense table listening on here. But as she was describing these events where she said that, you know, there were multiple male escorts that were happening at one time, these freak-offs would happen for 2, 3, the longest 4 days at a time. And control is the word we need to talk about. That is what prosecutors really laid out. And you heard Cassie describe how every action during these freak-offs, which were between her and male escorts, not necessarily between her and her boyfriend, Sean Diddy Combs. He sat off to the side really directing things according to her and masturbating along with what he wanted to see. But he was in control, she said, of exactly how they did everything, from the platform shoes that she needed to wear, the clothes that she needed to wear occasionally, masks, wigs, whether or not the male escort could ejaculate, where he could ejaculate. Everything, she said, was controlled by him. And mind you, Brian, his children, 6 children, are in the courtroom at this point listening to all of this. And the jury was picked knowing that they needed a certain level of comfort to hear these types of descriptions.
They didn't know they was going to hear that.
It was very emotional and really tough to hear, Brian. But to be clear, if these are in fact consensual acts, as the defense is going to claim, there's nothing wrong with having a non-conventional sexual appetite. The key here for prosecutors was having Cassie describe the fact that she said she didn't want to do this.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that, because the defense's argument here is that this was consensual, that maybe this is morally wrong, and maybe there was domestic violence, but that Cassie was a willing participant in all of this. What was her demeanor like on the stand?
Yeah, let me say this. She could have been a willing participant at one point. But at any time she said, I don't want to do this no more, it's just like the R word, right? When they say no means no, at any point, boyfriend, girlfriend, or what have you, when she decided this is enough, I do not want to do this anymore, and he forced her to continue working, operating like a pimp. Trafficking, taking me here, there. I done said I don't want to do that. It's criminal. It's not consensual. Okay, let's just be clear.
There was a lot of anticipation yesterday. We saw that photo of
In
her
my
outside,
opinion.
9 months pregnant. What was the demeanor like? Obviously, she was emotional. Was there a point where she actually broke down?
There was, Brian, there really was a few times that she welled up, and there was one point where she broke down. She did seem to struggle, at least in the beginning, to want to describe in detail the things she says she had gone through. That one quote that you had read right before you brought me in was very early on after she had been sworn in, when she said to the jury that she was dragged and kicked and beat down. And the prosecutors really had to press her in order to get that information out. Before she answered it, she kind of did, because she seemed to struggle with wanting to give that answer. But as we heard her describe these, for a lot of people, grotesque sexual activities, for other people, maybe that's normal for them. But for her, it didn't seem like something she said she wanted to do. But that's not really where she broke down in tears. When she broke down in tears and needed a tissue and needed a moment to compose herself was when she described the fact that all she said she wanted was for him to love her, for him to accept her. And she said many times that the reason she continued to go along with these freak-offs is because it was the only time she felt like she had one-on-one interactions with the man she had fallen in love with, Brian.
And again, we're looking at these sketches now of her crying. It's hard, though, for us on the outside to get a sense of what this was really like. And obviously, she is the prosecution's star witness, and they've interviewed her before. Did it feel rehearsed? Did it feel spontaneous? How would you describe sort of her demeanor up there?
Genuine is the best way I can describe it. She did really seem to struggle with wanting to answer questions that were very revealing about her life. I don't know, there's almost a way that you could still see that in her there was some affection and love, not maybe for him in the room certainly, but for the person that she once loved back then. She described her naivete when she was 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, meeting him, getting into this world, really not knowing how anything worked. She said she was almost completely sexually inexperienced by the time she met him. And there were a few times where she appeared sort of nervous and needed the prosecutor to repeat a question or maybe rephrase something or refresh her memory. And a few times where she said, you know, I just don't remember. So no, it really did not seem rehearsed in the slightest. It did seem like this is her story, and she didn't really want to be in a position where she had to tell it in this way, but was doing what needed to be done.
And just quickly, Caitlin, what was Diddy doing when he's sitting there? I'm just
jacking out.
Got his family sitting behind him with all these grotesque details. This woman on the stand.
There is a new $40,000 whole life insurance policy with no 2-year
sitting behind him with all
I bet you he played himself, stroked himself to sleep last night.
You know, first and foremost, he came into the courtroom and acknowledged his children. That is something he has done every single day. But during the actual testimony, when things got really dark, one of the mothers of one of his children had to get up and leave the courtroom. She couldn't sit through it. And you, Brian, have been in so many of these court cases the way I have. You know that the defendant is not supposed to react. But Diddy reacted. There were a few times where he was shaking his head no, kind of nodding along. There was a deep sigh at one point. But in two instances, one when they were talking about baby oil and the fact that it needed to be reapplied at sometimes 5-minute intervals because that's what he wanted to see. And then another instance when Cassie revealed the pseudonyms that he uses at hotels, that he actually pushed his chair all the way back from the defense table and kind of was like sort of taken aback by it. So that was very, very visible there. And he took a lot of notes and handed them to a defense attorney, Brian. And of course, we're going to get their chance to put Cassie on cross-examination and get their side of the story later this week.
Yeah, and you can imagine that team of defense lawyers probably told him not to react in any way. The jury's watching him the whole time, and yet he did anyway. Caitlin Becker, appreciate your insight on what it was like in court. We'll see you again tomorrow. Cassie's bombshell testimony even shocked Lisa Bloom, who's been a trial lawyer for 40 years. And Bloom, she was paying close attention because she represents a government witness who will likely take the stand along with two of Diddy's civil accusers, including Don Richard. Spoke with Lisa Bloom earlier today about what stood out to her as she sat in court and watched Cassie's testimony.
I'll be sure that.
Disturbing graphic details all day long. You were inside the courtroom. What stood out the most to you?
You know, it was a deeply disturbing day, and you're right. I've been doing sexual abuse cases for almost 40 years, and this is some of the most graphic testimony that I have ever heard, in depth. Cassie Ventura, very pregnant, looking like she could be giving birth at any time, very calmly answering the questions. Because I represent a government witness, I can't comment on a lot of things, but I can read things that are now in the public record. So I'll read you some of the testimony that I wrote down verbatim. And she said, for example, I made the wrong face, and the next thing I know, I'm getting hit in the face, referring to Sean Combs. If I wasn't smiling at him the way he wanted, she says she would get hit. He would say, fix your face, watch your mouth. When he stopped by her homes unannounced because he had keys in Knott's moment, and she said recovering from partying was a big part of my life. So those are just some of the pieces of testimony that are now in the record in this case.
We're looking, Lisa, right now at some of the courtroom sketches, but it's hard to get a feeling for what it was actually like in the courtroom. You were there. You mentioned that she's 9 months pregnant. Did you find her to be totally believable, and did she get emotional?
Absolutely.
So the court rules don't allow me, because I represent a government witness, from commenting on her credibility. But as to emotional, yes, she did get emotional, at least at one point. And some of the testimony was clearly very difficult for her, because she would sometimes pause. She would sometimes trail off at the end. And she had to be brought back, you know, to where she had been testifying.
This was also interesting, Lisa. She referred to male escorts, these male escorts that she says she was forced to have sex with, as staff members when having their agent book travels. Does that go back to the prosecution trying to set up the sex trafficking charges? What were they doing there when they were explaining that they were described as staff members?
Well, let's talk about the top charge in this case, which is racketeering conspiracy.
Let's go, Lisa.
That is the most significant charge in this case. If convicted, he is spending the rest of his life in prison. And what the prosecution laid out in their opening statement is that this wasn't just Sean Combs, that this was a conspiracy, a group of people. And the prosecution said it was his staff members, it was his assistants, it was his executives, who were all part and parcel of this conspiracy. Of course, the defense denies that. He is presumed innocent. He has not been found guilty. So I just want to point that out. But that is an important part of the case. So what we saw today was her being asked, yes, about staff members, about other people who were part of the situation, setting up the freak-offs, cleaning up after the freak-offs, and so on.
Yeah, and again, she described those freak-offs as sometimes lasting up to 4 days and just being brutal. Lisa Bloom, we appreciate you taking the time to come out of court and speak with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, and before we move on, we did reach out to Sean Combs' attorneys today, requested a statement from them, but we have not heard back.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased.
That was a good one. Let's do this one.
After my dad had a heart attack, he wanted to make sure he had a burial plan. I had no idea that this even existed. But turns out they're perfect for people on...
So in May of 2018, a man named Jonathan Odie opened fire at Donald Trump's Miami golf course and was shot and arrested by police. Now, Odie said that he was in the middle of a bipolar episode. That's where it gets interesting. Later, while being questioned by Florida authorities, Odie brought up something totally unexpected. He claimed that he'd been a sex slave for Sean Diddy Combs and Cassie Ventura. This video is courtesy of Real World Media. Take a look.
I had sex with Cassie and Sean. Basically, he would masturbate and tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard lots of business. Because what they would do is Sean talks a lot on the phone and on the TV with people and stuff, and I was like a sex slave.
Oh. So at the time, Odie's story seemed too far-fetched to believe, but not anymore. And now, in an exclusive interview, Odie opens up to News Nation senior producer Allison Weiner about his claims, beginning with why he's agreed to talk now. Listen to this.
I felt bad because I got along well with her, and I think she's a decent person. And unfortunately, I had a suspicion that she was in a situation that she was in, but I wasn't sure. And now I understand a lot of what's going on in her life and what was happening. And him beating her up in the hotel shows me the type of individual he is, and confirms that everything that happened to me was true.
What happened to him?
And in line with his personality.
What happened to him?
So he's speaking to us from a Miami jail now. Here is how Odie says it all began for him.
I was a male, chicken deal. A model chicken deal, you can say. And they called me also for the agency that I work for to do a show. And then I went on to the show, and things led to them offering me more money to perform sexual acts. And that's it. That's how I basically got caught. I get dressed like a police officer, I do a show, do a strip down, and then, they offer me some more money. They offer me some more money to do some extra stuff.
So Odie did get specific about the extra stuff that he says Diddy wanted from him, and these specifics were consistent with what he told law enforcement during the 2014 interrogation. Here is how he describes the atmosphere and how frequently it happened.
Candles, sensual atmosphere, lights off, he would sit in a corner in a sofa, watch and masturbate, and he'd say, he'd tell her instructions to what to do, perform oral sex, rub baby oil, and he'd tell me rub baby oil, perform oral sex, and then have sex.
How many times did you have sex with Cassie?
Probably like 15 sessions.
And what did you get paid? How much?
It was like 800 each time. Each act. But sometimes they'll call me twice. And then 3 hours later, they would call me to come back.
And so Odie claimed that the sessions were drug-fueled, and that his concern for both Cassie and himself led him to get one of their sessions on video. Listen to what he says about that.
Why did you decide to record her video?
Because after she passed out, I decided to record that. So in the event anything worse happened, like she died, or anybody died.
So she OD'd.
Camera, video, what happened. So I wasn't responsible for any of that.
So you were beginning to worry about her doing drugs. I mean, like about her dying or him dying or somebody dying from the drugs, and that you would be held responsible. So you brought a video. You brought your phone?
No, I had a USB video memory stick done in the spy shop, and I put it in a wallet on the table in the living room table of the hotel upstairs. I just filmed it, and it had everything on STRIKE, and it had her threatening me, but he was telling her what to say. and Diddy had a t-shirt with two in a ski mask pointing, making gun signs, okay? And it was black and white, and it had a red frame, okay? But that's the way he operates. He communicates, threatening you, like saying, I'm gonna have you killed.
You showed that.
So Odie says to prevent the recording from going public, that's what he was just talking about. Diddy had him sign an NDA,
which interview plus size baddie?
agreement in exchange for $5 million in hush money. This was in 2014. The Daily Mail ran a screenshot of what appears to be a signature page signed by Sean Combs and Odie. We have not been able to obtain the document or verify its contents or authenticity, nor have we been able to verify the existence of the video that you heard him talking about. Now, according to Daily Mail's report, the timing coincided with a spending spree by Odie of Florida real estate, and it also coincided with Odie's divorce. His ex-wife tells the Daily Mail that she found out about his windfall only after their split.
Basically, the day the incidents happened at Trump National Doral, I had to take medication, and I'd be diagnosed bipolar, but I wasn't sure I was bipolar, and I had an episode, and basically, I've been taking medication every day. I've been stable. I had no issues in jail. I had that incident behavior in jail. I'm feeling ready to come out to society and be a productive member of society.
All right, so Odie remains locked up in a Florida jail, still awaiting trial on charges of attempted murder, armed burglary, aggravated assault, and armed grand theft. Regarding the sex slave claims, we've reached out to Sean Diddy Combs' team for comment and have yet to hear back. And thank you to Allison Weiner for that interview. We'll continue to investigate all of that.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone.
Let's see what I
get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.
Look like I may need to. Hold on. Let's go back to the one that I... Let's see what this one's talking about. Hold on.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Impressive channel. P. Diddy's trial has started, and I tell you, the details so far have been crazy already. Diddy right now is facing some serious charges.
I'm gonna go back to the first one.
Feds hit him with a racketeering charge, a trafficking charge, and also a charge relating to transportation to engage in prostitution. And if Diddy is found guilty on all these counts, he could be facing life in prison. Now, the prosecutors did show the footage where Diddy was beating down his ex-girlfriend Cassie at the Intercontinental Hotel, and one of the security guards who intervened during that incident did give a testimony and said that Diddy was shouting at her and telling her not to leave, and he even said that Diddy tried to bribe him, but he turned it down. He also said that Cassie had a bruised eye, but Diddy's defense team did kind of grill him, and they pointed out the fact that some of the stuff that he was saying was not written down in his initial incident report. So there is some discrepancy there. Diddy's defense also downplayed the idea that Diddy bribed him because the security guard was complaining about the damages. So they basically argued that Diddy was offering money to pay for the damages, not to bribe him.
He didn't say that.
The prosecutors brought up a second witness, and this was kind of crazy. The second witness was a male escort named Daniel Phillip, and he said that he participated in multiple freak-off sessions with Diddy and Cassie. Now, if you remember in Cassie's lawsuit against Diddy, she claimed claimed that Diddy would arrange for her to sleep with men while he sat and watched and jacked off in the corner. That is what they would call their freak off sessions. And Cassie did also say that she was the one who would actually select the escorts upon Diddy's instruction. This escort in particular, Daniel Phillip, claimed that Cassie paid him. He showed up at the hotel. He thought that he was going to strip for a bachelorette party. Come to find out, he walked into a private freak-off party, and Cassie offered him money, and then she told him to rub her down with some baby oil, and they started getting nasty. And meanwhile, Diddy was in a corner with a bandana covering his face, and he was just watching, sitting there, jacking off. Diddy would also record them and tell them to rub more baby oil on each other. And the escort did say that these freak-off encounters would last up to 10 hours, and he would get paid up to $6,000 in cash. And rarely did they use condoms. Whew. So can you imagine the STDs?
Look here, y'all.
One time, Cassie asked the escort to give her a golden shower.
It's been in the freezer for 3 years.
He said Cassie was actually the one who asked me to urinate on her. She asked me if I ever done that before. She told me to do it. Apparently, I was doing it wrong because they both told me. Also, the escort Daniel did say that he did witness Diddy put his hands on Cassie a number of times. One time, Diddy threw a glass bottle at her and dragged her by her hair into another room. And Daniel said she was screaming. He said, I could hear what sounded like him slapping her. She was screaming, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And then he heard Diddy tell Cassie, be when I tell you to come now, not later. Now, the escort, Daniel, did not intervene or call the police because he was scared. He was scared that if he did something, Diddy would take his life. And he didn't want that to happen. And also, he detailed another incident where Diddy was slapping Cassie behind the bedroom doors and she was screaming. And then he left the hotel room and Cassie jumped into Daniel's lap and she started crying. And then she started kissing him, and their kissing turned into them having a full-blown intercourse. And then Diddy's freaky self pops up out of nowhere and starts watching them again. So that was a good bulk of the escort's testimony. It was very graphic. It was so graphic that Diddy's daughters had to leave the courtroom. And honestly, I don't know why Diddy would even want his children there. It's just not appropriate. And I don't agree with him trying to use his children to soften his image for the jury. Now, I want to get into Cassie's testimony because this is, in fact, important. Now, Cassie was in a 10-year relationship with Diddy, and it was very volatile. Cassie actually sued Diddy in 2023 and accused him of SA, DV. She claims he drugged her, violated her, and did all types of heinous stuff to her. And Diddy did settle that $30 million lawsuit within a day. And of course, that made him look guilty because that was the fastest settlement in entertainment history. And this lawsuit actually led the feds to investigate Diddy and also arrest him. So Cassie's lawsuit and her testimony are very important. And like I mentioned before, Diddy is facing racketeering charges, and basically he's being accused of running a criminal enterprise and using bribery and arson and trafficking and all sorts of crimes under his company. And also he's facing another charge for sex trafficking and also transporting prostitutes across state lines to engage in sex. So that is illegal. And Cassie's testimony actually strengthens the prosecutor's case against Diddy because she admitted that Diddy had his staff provide her with drugs for their freak-offs. And some of these drugs were illegal, like ecstasy. That's not legal. Diddy would also use travel agents who worked for his company to arrange for escorts to fly in for the freak-offs. And their freak-offs would take place in different states and different countries. So they were flying prostitutes in. And that is actually illegal too. So Diddy was using his network of people and his enterprise to basically engage in crimes. And this is what's going to cook Diddy. Yes, he's violent and yes, he's freaky, but those are just descriptions of his character. However, it's these crimes that are going to have him locked up for life. Now, Cassie hit the stand and she broke down in tears, y'all. She talked about how she met Diddy. You know, she was an aspiring singer. She met him when she was 19 years old and he was, in his mid-30s, close to 40. And of course, since she was signed to him, he had this power over her. He had power over her career and her choices. And he also lured her into having a romantic relationship with him. And Cassie admitted that she was in love with Diddy. She was enamored by his fun, outgoing personality. However, she didn't know that he had a dark, devious side. She said
didn't
that
know
he would
he was
frequently put his
Dorito.
hands on her and he would leave injuries all over her body. She said sometimes if she even looked at him wrong, he would knock her in the face. So he was very temperamental and moody at times. And also she said she was shocked when Diddy introduced her to these freak-offs. Diddy liked to watch his partners sleep with other men. That is how he got his rocks off, right? So he wanted Cassie to do that. And at the time, Cassie was young. She was inexperienced. And she didn't really open up until Diddy gave her some ecstasy. And that's when she got lured into the freak-off lifestyle, okay? Now, some people would argue that she was complicit because she picked the escorts and she oftentimes paid them, but she claims that she did it under Diddy's instruction. And at first, Diddy was the one who was picking the escorts, but then he gave her the task to do it. And she would have to find them off of Craigslist or Backpage, and Diddy would have to approve. But Diddy was really the one who was orchestrating all of the freak-offs. He was the one who set up how he wanted it done. He was recording her. There was like tons of blackmail footage that they both recorded. And she claims that she didn't really know how to refuse the freak-offs because she didn't know how Diddy would react. Diddy was moody. He was temperamental. She was scared that he would get mad or violent. And she also didn't want to be rejected because in her mind, she was in love with him. So it's clear that she had some form of Stockholm syndrome. The freak-offs were humiliating. It made her feel disgusting. She actually broke down in tears when she talked about it. She was always drugged up when she did the freak-offs too. She was always either on ecstasy, coke, or mushrooms, and she drank alcohol, and she would be doing freak-offs for days at a time.
Days.
The longest freak-off session was like over 4 days, and she had to take coke to keep her going. Like, it was a lot. And Diddy loved to see Cassie get peed on. He liked the escorts to pee on her. And not to mention, he was obsessed with baby oil. He wanted Cassie and his escorts glistening in baby oil. Cassie
why
said
he
that
look so
used
damn
10
ashy?
bottles of baby oil per freak-off session. And one time, Diddy had Cassie get into a pool.
Why his ass don't look like he oiled up? Don't he look ashy? I mean, not on this picture, but I done seen some where he done look ashy as hell.
Full of baby oil. It was just crazy. Her testimony was really intense, and she has more testimony left. She will be cross-examined by Diddy's defense team, but as far as I'm concerned, Diddy is cooked. Now, I do want to talk about this because some days ago, the R&B singer Albie Shore revealed that he believes that Diddy was behind his
There we go,
Albie that almost ended his life. He thinks Diddy tried to take him out. Now, if you don't know, back in 2022, Albie Shore collapsed and fell into a coma for 2 months, and he suffered from multiple organ failure. And it really is a miracle that he was able to make it out alive. But he got a liver transplant and he recovered, and now he's alive to tell his story. And he is dropping a tell-all book called
And he was subpoenaed.
Do You Believe Me Now? And he is alleging a lot of things. And he is saying that Diddy tried to take him out because he was about to tell it all.
I was ignored. There was the most expensive PR campaign against me to shut me down. If you actually knew what they did to me, there was a bounty on my head. There was a bunch of stuff.
So do you think specifically then that Sean Diddy Combs or people affiliated with him did something to you that caused you to have multi-organ failure?
I believe this to be the case, yes. Absolutely.
Wow.
My first time saying it.
Are you concerned that he still has power outside of incarceration?
Remember, I'm the only one who spoke up, and I'm the only one left alive.
Albie Shore also believes that Diddy might have been behind his ex, Kim Porter's death. It was widely reported that Kim passed from pneumonia, but There are some people who don't believe that. There are people who believe that Diddy had Kim Porter taken out because she was about to write a tell-all book about him.
Yes, many, many years ago, I posted some information that was, basically trying to save my life. And thank goodness to my ex, the wonderful Kim Porter, the late Kim Porter, who, kind of warned me all along the way to, just kind of watch your back, so on and so forth. And I didn't understand why.
Because of Diddy.
Basically.
Do you believe that she died of pneumonia?
Absolutely not.
Why? What evidence do you have?
She was in the best of health. We just saw each other prior to her passing.
So this once again adds fuel to the theories that Kim Porter did not pass from natural causes, but she was actually unalived and allegedly unalived by P. Diddy. Now, we don't really know if it's true, but the fact that Albie Shore is kind of, I guess, vaguely hinting at it, it does make me wonder, But anyway, tell me what you all think about this whole mess down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video if you care. Thank you so much.
Hold on. I'll be sure is serious about it. Where is... What time is it? 12. Let's see if they coming back with some more news. Let's go back to where we started. See if there's an update.
What if I told you
Hold
you
on,
just
yeah.
need to wet this razor in order to use it? This Moisture Plus razor by Flamingo actually has a...
wider view. The wider view is that is the only one of the main reasons why we know about this is because of that.
Was the male escort present at the freak-off held in 2016 at the... After the incident, her lip is swollen and she is wearing sunglasses with her hoodie pulled over her head. She took the photo in an Uber as she left the hotel.
Hi, Kelly. I hope he goes to prison for what he did to JB and all the victims. Now, who is JB?
She had a black eye. Once home,
Who is
she said
JB?
a friend of hers saw her
Kelly.
injuries and was super upset because she'd seen me with black eyes and busted lips before. Cassie said her friend called police, but she declined to reveal who had injured her once police arrived. Left. In that moment, I didn't want to hurt him that way, Cassie testified. I wasn't ready. The court is also being shown text exchanges between Cassie Ventura and Sean Combs from the day of the 2016 incident at the hotel in Los Angeles. In the messages, Combs is pleading with Ventura. Call me, he texted, then call now. I went and checked everything and spoke to security. As long as you don't disturb the other
us,
guests,
a lot of people.
they'll leave you be, Ventura wrote to Combs.
It's a lot of
another
people.
Message. I want to repeat that again. I went and checked everything and spoke to security. As long as you don't disturb the other guests, they'll leave you be, Ventura wrote to Combs in another message. Again, a big part of today is prosecution asking Cassie once again questions about the 2016 incident. Hotel footage has no audio, and for stretches of time, Sean Combs is seen talking to Cassie Ventura. Ventura said that he was calling me out by my name, in other words, insulting her and calling her slurs, and told her that she wasn't going to leave him there.
Okay, hold on.
And again, we're not yet at the material found in the two drives the prosecutor has asked Cassie Ventura about. The prosecutor is asking Ventura to flesh out certain points from her testimony just yesterday. Asked whether she fought back when Sean Combs would.
Oh, wow. We definitely not need to check this one out. But that's not where I'm trying to go right now. I'm trying to go to another place. But we're going to definitely have to touch on that one. Where is this at? Hold on, y'all.
A high-yield money market account offering great rates with unlimited access to your money? Now that's helpful.
Meet Sam. Every day starts with his morning routine. Like many of us,
incident, and then the next one hypothetically could be a month later. So the cycle is basically the violent event, apologies, a honeymoon period, a build-up, and then another violent incident. And so she's been testifying about how he's brutalized her, but then again, you see them out on the red carpet, you see, her with jewelry and cars and all of these things, which is basically kind of like blood contributions, right? Because he's trying to get her to stay with him and obviously not report and not tell everybody his business. And again, a lot of this we saw in terms of the lawsuit, how quickly he settled, because he knew what was all going to come out, and he knew once the public started to hear about this, this was going to be very destructive for him. And of course, the law enforcement investigation really took it over the top. So I think this is going to be very much centered on the battered person's experience and having those experts really explain to the lay person how these types of relationships work. Because again, it defies logic in a lot of ways. Why would you stay with somebody who beats you? Well, they don't beat you on the first date, because there wouldn't be a second date. Mm-hmm. This is something where the relationship develops and then the violence.
Yeah, and Sean Combs's attorneys conceded in opening statements, yes, there was domestic violence in this relationship. I mean, they can't deny it. I want to give you a little bit of an update from court. There's been a lot of photographic evidence this morning that they took from Cassie Ventura's phone, and they've been introducing that through Cassie's testimony, showing photographs of Cassie Ventura's injuries to the jury. These were taken from her phone and other devices. In one exchange with the assistant U.S. attorney, they're showing an incident from Toronto. She said she put her hair over her eye to hide a bruise, and then they went to the Hamptons. She said that Sean Combs wanted to then have a freak off in the Hamptons, so they got a hotel and an escort. She said that the escort was named Dave. She took the drug GHB, and she went into a G-hole, which sounds like some type of blackout. She woke up and she was naked in the shower, and Dave and Sean were freaking out. I bugged out. It wasn't pretty, is what she said in the testimony. She said, then what? Ventura responded, I spoke to a friend of Sean's, and then we had a freak off. And then they showed another photograph, and it shows her eyebrow that had healed up a little bit a week later, and she has a permanent scar on her eyebrow, she said, from this. And she is shown another photo from the Cannes Film Festival. She said Sean accused her of taking drugs from his boat and threw her off of the boat, but her passport was still on the boat. She was on the red carpet for some type of event that night, and she said she attended the movie. They then went to New York. There was a commercial flight that they took. She traded her seat to get away, but he traded to get next to her. What did he show you? Freak off videos. So we've heard about this, him showing videos and then using that as kind of blackmail material, if you will. She said that he played the freak off videos for me on one of his laptops. He said he would release them. So that's some pretty compelling evidence, Tyler. How do you combat that as a defense attorney?
The only way I think this can be combated is showing that it was consensual. They're going to paint out Ms. Ventura as somebody who was in this relationship for her own benefit, whether it's her music career, modeling career, and any other perks that she got from being associated with Mr. Combs. That's the only thing I really think that the jury can try to do. And also say, well, look, the defense lawyers could try to do, and say if they were, of course he was not acting as a good partner would be, but is this trafficking? Was she forced to have sex with different people, or was this something she engaged in under her own volition? I think that's the defense's best strategy here. But the sheer magnitude of the graphic testimony that we're hearing from Ms. Ventura, I believe, is probably laying a firm foundation in the minds of these jurors, and understanding that there are going to be other victims who likely give testimony as well. So even if you think these things about Ms. Ventura, you're showing a pattern of conduct, of travel, hiring escorts, using illicit drugs, traveling internationally to fuel some sort of what appears to be a sexual enterprise to feed Mr. Combs' own appetite for these things.
Bradford, we have another question from a viewer. This is Shelley Taylor. She asks, what about all of the people who covered for him? Why are they not charged? And that's a good question.
Sure. The answer is probably because they're going to be witnesses. There's no better way not to be charged in a criminal conspiracy than to cooperate with the government. And that's the difference between us, defense attorneys, and the government. They have such massive power to either grant immunity to witnesses, find witnesses that'll testify against you as long as they don't get charged. There's all these different ways that they can get testimony at an individual. So if I go and I list a bunch of defense attorneys, which defense witnesses that the defense attorneys have already done, I'm sure the prosecution goes out. They send an FBI agent to knock on your door. There's no better way to intimidate you than an FBI agent knocking on your door and saying, hey, I heard you're going to testify for Sean Combs. We'd like to talk to you. And when you tell them, no, I don't want to talk to you, suddenly you are then a target as well to see what your involvement in this investigation could be, to see what you did wrong. So the massive power of the government is always unmatched. Doesn't matter how much money you have. It is always unmatched by a defense attorney, no matter who the defense attorney is. And I say that, because I've been in it. I've experienced it. I've had clients that are high net worth individuals that still have hired investigators, prior FBI agents, all these individuals, and still the power of the government is unmatched in these type of cases because of their ability to send out FBI agents anywhere in the world within an hour's notice to get a statement from someone, to intimidate someone, to make sure that they testify for the government, to give immunity to individuals, to arrest someone that is unwilling to come in and testify. They can have the power of an arrest and then put them in front of the judge and say, hey, this individual said that they might not show up for a trial, judge, and we want to keep them in custody until they do. That's why they have a 99% conviction rate. Luckily for me, I've been able to work within that 1% many, many times. But that being said, that power is unmatched. You don't experience it, you don't understand it until you're sitting at that table with your defense attorneys and feeling how every single witness that's taking the stand made some sort of deal or some sort of cooperation, or they're given some sort of immunity to testify against you. And in this case, where there is a RICO charge and, he's the only guy in the RICO, it's very unusual that you see one individual in a RICO and not even unnamed co-defendants. And that's really the alley that the defense needs to go down, and I think they will, is that all these individuals could have been named co-defendants. They all enabled, they all knew what was going on, they all either helped procure these prostitutes, ordered 1,000 bottles of Johnson & Johnson baby oil. Certainly that wasn't because someone wanted to get a tan. And all these different things that were going on could not have occurred without the cogs in the wheel, in the machine, to keep that turning, including Cassie. And I think that's where the defense has to go with it. And yeah, is it a tightrope? Sure. But that's why we get paid the big bucks. You know, you got to walk those tightropes. You have to, you know, cross-examine Cassie with the eye that she's a pregnant, 8.5-month pregnant woman that has been through a lot. I don't discount that. But at the same token, you have someone who was procuring prostitutes, was knowingly helping to fly them in, was doing all these things. And the only thing the government can say is, yeah, she was doing those things because she felt threatened. But at some point she left. At some point in 2018, she left, she got married, and she was living a happy life. And then she decided a couple of years later that life needed to be supplemented by $50 million. And that's what the defense is going to go for. And that's what the defense is going to say. And as much as we want to protect women and protect that type of abuse that I'm sure she suffered some type of abuse. At some point, there's going to be some people on the jury that are going to say, hey, you know, this went on for 7 years. Someone needs to take some responsibility. And it couldn't be that every time this happened, it wasn't without consent. That's where the defense is going to go. That's what I think is their strong point.
But hold on.
Hold
on, sir. Hold on, sir. Hold on, sir. Hold on, sir. Hold on, sir. We have to admit that she is not saying that she was never actively involved. She started out saying 3 years after meeting him, when he brought it up to her, she agreed because she loved him and she wanted to do whatever she needed to do to please him. So at first, she was okay with it. But at what point, just because I agreed in the beginning and things became too aggressive, too abusive, too, became my full-time job, would I pay? Yeah, I got my rent is paid. Yes, I have a car. Yes, he gifted me. But at one point, I said, I don't want to do that no more. And this is why we are here. She is not saying she never wanted to be a part of it. We are not going to lie and say that, sir. She said, I came to my senses. I ain't want to do this no more. It became really nasty and grimy and abusive. It took me, 4, 5, 6 years in therapy to realize that I was groomed at the age of 19. Now I really understand what's going on and what happened to me. So that's why he's being sued now. Yeah. And because he paid the settlement, the government says, no, we're going to use you as a witness with his criminal organization. So let's just be clear what's going on right here. Sometimes these folk get too lost in the sauce. They be too politically correct and they forget the facts. We don't forget the facts over here, do we, T-Sippers? Nope.
The only way to defend this case is that you have to come out, I call it the velvet glove, right? You have to come out with a glove, right? You want to hit, but it has to be a velvet glove. It has to be a soft hit. So you can't be the Brad Cohen in this case. You have to treat each witness kind of with kid gloves until you can really trap them into a conversation where now you can demonstrate to the jury, this is why he or she is lying.
Well, we want to let everybody know that the jury has gone to lunch, so we should be able to check in with Elizabeth Milner in just a short time. She'll be able to tell us what exactly is going on in that courtroom, the reactions from the jurors.
You're welcome,
how Cassie Ventura
Kelly.
is on the stand. Is she getting tearful today? We don't know. We know that she did get tearful earlier in her testimony. But let's get to some more questions right now. Melba, I'll send this next question to you. I don't know if they need to actually show these videos, but do you anticipate, and this question was from Marissa Monroe, are they going to show the freak-off videos in court?
I think they will, but I don't think they're going to show all of them. I think they're just going to maybe show like a sampling. So again, Cassie can talk about and identify the sex workers that may have been involved, identify the locations, because again, in order for this to be a federal case, you've got to cross state lines. So if you have to establish that these activities happened in New York, happened in Miami, happened in California, that you were forcibly transferred or had to travel to each of these different locations. So the videos are going to be important from that perspective. But again, I don't think everybody's going to sit there and, watch, sex tape after sex tape after sex tape and watch Cassie be, basically raped and brutalized 10 different ways from sunrise. I don't see that happening. But I do see some snippets coming in. But I do got to say one more thing, because my inner prosecutor wants to go after what Brad said.
Yeah, I had a feeling Melba was going to have something to say about what Bradford was saying. So go on, Melba.
Yeah. But most importantly,
I think that Melba's bringing the velvet hammer to you, Bradford. Not a velvet glove, a velvet hammer.
Melba's fantastic.
So go on,
She's always
Melba.
been fantastic. I welcome it.
Well, one thing I will say, first of all, is that sadly, I think all of us know people who have stayed in abusive relationships for a lifetime. And we know people that have died as a result of domestic violence relationships. So that argument of, well, take responsibility, you should leave, et cetera, you don't leave until you're ready. And ready can mean a number of different things. Ready could mean you are emotionally ready to walk away from the person. Maybe it was one beating too far. Maybe you ended up in the hospital, whatever the case may be. She left him around 2018 and there's allegations of a sexual assault in 2018. Maybe he brutalized her one time too many and she walked away. It's not necessarily she's waiting for $50 million. She just needed to get her inner gumption together to be able to walk away. And also her coming forward, yes, later in life, but a lot of times, again, it's because you have enough space away from the person and you feel strong enough in your own life. You have money, you have a roof over your head. Your survival is not tied to your abuser. And now you feel strong enough to come out and talk about it. You've seen what happened with Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, so many survivors. That's why we had to have the Adult Survivors Act that allows people to come back and be able to address these claims decades sometimes after the fact, because again, that emotional healing is not a linear thing. It takes a while to get out of these relationships and then feel strong enough to be able to go through the entire court process, especially sharing the most horrible, degrading things that can happen
this
to you as
stuff
a human being,
she's
and sharing
admitting
it in front
to
of
is
people
horrible.
you don't know, sharing it in front of your partner, sharing for all of us to sit there and analyze it. That's tough. That's not an easy thing to do, and some survivors are never able to do.
Exactly. I agree.
You're most definitely right, Melba. And they have to be ready. They have to be ready. And often at times there's a lot of fear. So we are going to get back to the questions here in just a few moments. Stay with us, everybody.
You want to know what I'm most excited about this summer? No more high-waisted bikinis or one-pieces. Be the first to say
into the YouTube chat. We are going to take a quick break, but before we do, we wouldn't be able to do this show without the support of the viewers, of course. You guys are the most important part of this, but also we have really great sponsors, and one of them is Morgan & Morgan. They're a terrific law firm that helps people who've been hurt in accidents and all kinds of things. And in the past few months alone, Morgan & Morgan has won some really big verdicts. There's been crash victim in Florida, a $13 million verdict for a wrongful auto death in Georgia, and another $6 million for a trucking accident in New York. And this was after the insurance company offered their clients significantly less in each of these cases. So if you think your case isn't worth millions and millions of dollars, that doesn't matter. You can still start a claim and fight for what you deserve. And they make it really easy. You can use your cell phone to start a claim in just 8 clicks. So if you're ever hurt, try it out. Start a claim at forthepeople.com/LC Live. You can also do it by clicking the link. It's below, and you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen. So we will take a quick break. As I said, stay with us. Drop your questions in the YouTube chat. And when we come back, we are going to be joined by Law and Crime's Elizabeth Milner. She has been in the courtroom throughout the duration of this case and during the trial, and she's going to update us on what's been happening this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Oh, Do dicky diddy. Do diddy. Ooh, my goodness. We got to stop trying to figure out why it takes a victim so long to report it or come to terms with their trauma, especially if you ain't never been through nothing. I mean, we the people are quick to judge, and we'll never tell people what they've been through. What she's saying is right. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I am never going to be lack of empathy with someone who's been molested or assaulted or none of that. Just because I've never experienced it. Their trauma ain't my trauma, and my trauma ain't their trauma, you know. But it don't mean that they should be at a point in their life where they can deal with it. That is the craziest shit that. But if I'm gonna keep it real, that's why I hate the rug. I hate the rug. If it's anything on God's green earth, I hate the rug. I hate the rug. AunTeaFee, what is the rug? I hate the rug. The rug is what goes on in my house, in the house, stay in the house, you know. And your parents, your granny, or big mama, or meemaw, or, you know, whatever affectionate name you call your grandmama and them, pawpaw and them. They sweep it up under the rug. Everybody has a rug. And it's generational. That's where the curse is, majority of the time. That's where the family secrets, the uncle who abused the child, the auntie, you know, the parents, the daddy, or whoever, the neighbor, you know, violated, robbed a lot of kids of their innocence. And I cannot stand the rug, because if we gonna keep it real, and I mean really, really, really real, most of the times kids who have been violated were betrayed. Their first betrayal was by somebody that they loved and trusted. And a lot of times it's their mama or daddy. More so the mama than the daddy. Because the mother's the nurturer. Daddy normally is outside. Hi, Kiki Mac. Good morning. Are y'all following me? And so the betrayal started there, right? And at some point, majority of the times, you were told to let that go or forget that, or that didn't happen, they didn't believe you, you know, or they blamed you. And it had nothing to do with you. And they left you with that. And then they swept that incident up under the rug. And then you old or older, and you got these mental issues that you don't know how to deal with. Believe me, Diddy, up under that rug.
I'm Anjanette Levy, and
as a child.
we are covering
Let's
the
go back.
trial of Sean Diddy Combs out of the federal court in Lower Manhattan. I am Anjanette Levy, and we are taking your questions this hour, as we always do during the lunch hour in our big trials. So please drop them in our YouTube chat. We'll get to as many of them as we can. And we have our great panel with us this hour. Bradford Cohen is a criminal defense attorney. Melba Pearson is a former prosecutor, and Tyler Bailey is also a
D Money. I didn't quite understand that, but okay.
Unfortunately, Bradford Cohen has to leave us. So Bradford,
it's threatening.
We will see you later. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. It's always good to see everybody. These guys are great guests. Melba's always one of my favorites. And
we love Melba.
So
and we love Tyler too. We'll see you another time, Bradford.
Tyler's great. See you later.
But now we are going to check in with Law and Crime's Elizabeth Milner. She has been in the courthouse the entire time. Throughout the duration of this case, she's been to every hearing, and she's been there for the trial every day. She has been in the courtroom. So Elizabeth, I'm really interested to hear from you about what's been going on this morning in the courtroom. Some really compelling testimony. I've been reading online that the jurors have been seeing some photographs from Cassie Ventura's electronic devices that show maybe some bruising and some other things like that from injuries she says she suffered at the hands of Sean Combs.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of a majority of what the focus was on today. We saw a lot of exhibits in front of the entire gallery, as well as the jurors too. A lot of text messages, a lot of photographs, either photographs from the red carpets after, physical abuse that Cassie was talking about during her testimony today. We saw text message exchanges between Cassie and Diddy, who, in some text messages he's referred to as the name of Pop Pop, and Cassie is referred to as baby girl in these types of text messages. And so that was kind of a lot of focus of what this morning has been so far. Cassie is still under direct examination by the prosecution. She's being questioned by ASA Emily Johnson. Diddy today appearing in a different color today. He had a cream sweater on, a white undershirt. He had gray slacks on, whereas Cassie, she had a nice, a very gray long dress on. She came in with a black trench coat. Whenever she had walked over to the witness stand, it was kind of the same situation as it was yesterday. She didn't look over to the defense's side. She didn't eyeball Diddy from what I could see of her walking up to the witness stand. It seems like she was just laser focused on getting there, sitting down. The jury would be brought in afterwards. They would sit down. She would kind of, look at their direction, definitely not looking at the defense's direction. And from what I could see, even during her line of questioning, it seemed that she was just, again, laser focused on just answering the prosecution's questions. She kept her eyes on the prosecutor, again, that being Emily Johnson, while she was asking her questions. A notable thing that I also saw while sitting inside the courtroom today is that, Diddy's support looked a lot different today. Normally we're seeing his entire family members. We're seeing some of the mothers of his children come into that courtroom. And today was a little different. Today it was just Christian Combs, aka King Combs, Justin Combs, Quincy Brown, Janice Combs, Diddy's mother. But notably, none of his daughters were inside that courtroom today. They had been there Monday and Tuesday, but not sure if maybe it was the rain that didn't bring them in today, or maybe it was the fact that they knew, Cassie would be testifying for a couple more days, and just kind of the graphic nature of her testimony. They were just kind of like, let's not come today. But that is some big standouts that I definitely noticed while sitting in the gallery today.
This is some really graphic, difficult testimony. And Sean Combs' daughters, I mean, these are young women, teenagers in some instances. And I mean, this has got to be difficult for them to hear. A woman, these are graphic sexual details, physical abuse, drug use. I mean, these are really difficult things to listen to. And this is their father.
And where's Abel?
And this is another woman. So this has to be difficult for them to hear. And I think I was reading the other day, Elizabeth, that they actually walked out at different points during some of the testimony.
Yeah, they walked out specifically during Daniel Phillips' testimony. He is one of the escorts that Cassie had spoken about as far as being involved in the freak-off, someone that they would use pretty often. And so during that time, especially when it came to, like you had said, Anjanette, just some of those graphic details, you know, sometimes I really kind of get lost in just all the notes that I had because at this point I'm already on notebook 2 from this trial and we're only on day 3. So a lot of stuff kind of going on. But yeah, for the most part, it is a
please
lot
hit
of
the like
hard
button, support the
details to kind
platform.
of listen to. You know, look, I'm older than Diddy's daughters. I am older than Cassie was when she had met Diddy. And even for me, myself, it was very hard to kind of listen to that testimony. I recorded a sidebar yesterday and there was just a moment that I had to take myself because, you know, just to kind of hear from her perspective and kind of, you know, the physical abuse that she says she endured during her relationship with Diddy. Because even as somebody, you know, like myself, who was always on social media, always following pop culture, always kind of invested in, you know, what is going on with celebrity lives, you know, for a long period of time, it seemed like they were this quote unquote picture perfect couple. Every time you would see them, Cassie would appear very happy. Diddy was always on her arm. They were traveling all around the world. They were taking private jets. They were doing, essentially.
From Tina Fey and the creator of Saturday Night Live comes Mean Girls, the hilarious hit Broadway.
After a red carpet premiere that she would have to go and do a freak off, hearing that, you know, on a birthday where she just wanted to hang out with her friends and do karaoke, things like that, you know, because she was in her early 20s to late 20s when this relationship was going on. And it seems like she, from her perspective, just wanted to live like any normal 20-something where, you know, she would spend time with her boyfriend. She would only be intimate with her boyfriend, but at her boyfriend's direction, which is something that she had talked about throughout the duration of her testimony.
Because he wasn't into her, he into men.
Freak-offs because that made Diddy happy. That was something that he fantasized about. That was something that she essentially wanted to do to please him. And so, you know, just hearing through all of that, it is very hard to kind of digest that and unpack it. And as much as people may say, like, you know, I don't understand how Elizabeth can deal and listen to all of this, I don't understand how Cassie can testify to all of this because it is so graphic, and I can only imagine how she feels having to do this in a, you know, in the general public, having to talk about doing freak-offs when she had UTIs or when she was on her menstrual cycle or that type of sort. It's very, very graphic details that she is laying out while the prosecution is questioning her.
I'm sure it's just got to be traumatic for her to relive this. I'm wondering, Elizabeth, from your vantage point in the courtroom, how is the jury, if you can get a good look at them? Because I know it's sometimes in these courtrooms, you know, you're trying to look around, it's crowded, you know, you can't always see, and sometimes jurors are very stoic. But are you able to see the jurors and see if they are reacting at all? You know, is there any facial expression that you can see from them as they're listening to Cassie and as they see that awful hotel video from 2016?
Well, the hotel video, the jurors had already seen even as early as Monday. And so that was something that they were very familiar with. As far as, you know, reactions, there was no visible reactions from what I could see. I couldn't see anyone necessarily, you know, wiping away tears. For the most part, I saw, you know, some jurors were taking their notes down. Some jurors were, you know, because whenever the exhibits are shown, they're displayed on a screen right in front of them, very much intently analyzing these messages, looking at them, looking at the contents of it. Because in addition to the messages that we saw, even the red carpet photos that we saw, you know, we also saw photos of Cassie with a fat lip, as she had called it. You know, it was bruised, it was swollen, as you could tell from the photograph. We saw her with a cut on her eyebrow that she had to go to a plastic surgeon at Diddy's direction so that way they could get it fixed. You know, you see photos of her with bruises on herself. You know, some of the photos that we even have in-house of Cassie and Diddy on red carpets and that sort. But as far as the jury's reaction to it, for the most part, you know, they were again looking at either the exhibits, taking their notes down, or even just directly looking at Cassie herself. I feel like her testimony comes off very compelling, very credible. You know, even for the most part, if there's a question that, you know, she doesn't necessarily have the answer to, she's very open about that. I don't remember, I don't recall, I don't remember exactly what he had said. She comes off very credible. And even Diddy himself sitting at the defense table, he's doing kind of like a tennis match look where he's looking, you know, at ASA Emily Johnson, then he's looking at Cassie, he's looking at the jurors. And, you know, as much as, you know, I talk about Diddy very much being a part of his defense. He definitely is, because he is very laser focused on the testimony that is coming out. He is very laser focused on what Cassie is saying. And if there is something that she had said, he's writing some notes down. He's handing it off to his defense attorneys. And so, yeah, it seems like for the most part, a lot of people are just very much intently listening to just what she all has to say. And a lot of people, for the most part, are just being laser focused on Cassie and everything that she has been describing throughout the duration of their on and off relationship for an 11-year time period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's something our viewers have been asking about today, Elizabeth. You know, how long were they together? And 11 years. I mean, it's a long time, and she was a very young woman when she got together with him. So there's a lot to go over through her testimony. I want to get back to what you were saying about Sean Combs, and you're saying he's a really active participant in his own defense, and of course he would be. I mean, his life is on the line here. He could, if he's convicted, spend theoretically the rest of his life behind bars in a federal prison. I was reading the other day that he was kind of just sitting back and looking at her intently, at Cassie as she testified. You're saying it's like a tennis match. He's kind of looking back and forth, passing notes, things like that. Are you seeing any emotion from him, or is it just more like, okay, we've got to get down to business, and he's just kind of intently focused on this? I mean, are you seeing anything from him at all?
It's looking kind of like a little bit of both. There are times where his head is down, especially as they're talking about things like the number of escorts that were brought in. Some of these other testimony that was brought in as far as just how often and frequent it is. For the most part, I've not seen too much of a reaction, even as far as, the physical assaults that are being talked about in this testimony. I'm seeing, for the most part, again, him just kind of, either he's keeping his head down because he's jotting a note down, or maybe he's keeping his head down because his family is behind him, and in their respect, also kind of looking, at Cassie and Cassie's direction, looking at the exhibits that are displayed into the gallery. And so for the most part, it does seem like he's not having too much of a reaction. Not sure if that's just a defense strategy that they're having, so that way it doesn't come off, possibly prejudicial or anything like that. But for the most part, he just seems to be just kind of looking on, not having any type of reaction as far as feeling bad or anything like that. But again, I'm not in his head at all, actually, so I don't know fully what he's thinking in his mind. But for the most part, it seems that if there is a point that, he wants his defense to talk about or something like that, he is just jotting it down, handing it off to his defense attorney, but just for the most part sitting quietly at the defense table, but not even really looking at his family for, affirmation or anything like that. He really is just very much so kind of being inside that courtroom at the defense table, focused on what the testimony is.
Very interesting. Well, Elizabeth, we are going to let you go. Court should be resuming fairly shortly, and we know you need to get back to it. Thanks so much. It's been great talking with you. We will let you get back to work. Elizabeth Milner, have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to get back to your questions with our panel. We have some great guests here. Melba Pearson is a former prosecutor based down in Florida, and Tyler Bailey is a criminal defense attorney in South Carolina. So guys, first of all, before we get to more of the questions from our viewers, and they're sending in some really good ones, Melba, just some thoughts on what Elizabeth had to say.
Again, just continuing with the heartbreaking nature of all of this, because, much like Elizabeth, I was a huge Diddy fan back in the day. This is a couple that we followed on socials. And again, you have that glamorous image, and you really thought that this was, a great couple. And then, okay, they broke up, whatever. No clue the horrors that were going on behind closed doors, and everything that she endured is just, it's just gut wrenching. And it also kind of makes us kind of, I guess, as fans, feel guilty that, wait a minute, we were supporting this monster all along. I mean, I think folks kind of felt the same way in the wake of R. Kelly and all of those allegations coming out, and then his eventual criminal conviction. But I think it's just, again, it's a gut check in terms of worshiping celebrity and sort of like who you follow, and what the real story is, and the fact that they are human and subject to all the human frailties, both good, bad, and indifferent.
Let's go.
Yeah,
I
think this
send
is a
me
good
some
reminder
little lunch
that
money.
No matter what you see in these pictures
How
on
about
social
that?
media, Tyler, whether you think Sean
Support
Combs is
my
actually
lunch.
guilty
Because
of
I'm
a
almost
federal
out of
crime,
juice on this
you
phone.
never
It's what,
know
3-4
what is
hours
going on
straight?
behind closed doors. And obviously, you know, it's very evident there was domestic violence here.
Yeah, and you know what I found really interesting about what Elizabeth just told us was the lack of emotion that she could see from the jurors. You know, we know about Mr. Combs and these allegations, and they're hearing this horrendous testimony and live in that courtroom, in that solemn courtroom, by a competent AUSA who's prosecuting this case. And she says she did not see much emotion on the jurors. You know, I don't want to read into that too much, but that could be that the jurors are really doing their job and taking in all evidence and not rushing to an early conclusion, that they could have been aware of what they were going to see and they weren't shocked by what they're seeing and hearing. But it's real early in the case, and we'll see what that means later on.
Yes, we will see. We will see. Let's get to more of your questions now. This one
Plus
is from
size
Corey
baddie.
Evans.
You still here?
Melba, do you believe this trial warrants the government spending millions of dollars solely to arrest him for participating in a few freak-offs?
It's more than
I
just
think
a
the
few
government would say
freak-offs.
it's more than a few freak-offs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard a number of comments around that. And
Stop playing.
again, let's remember, we all have sisters, mothers,
Absolutely.
aunts, women that we care about. And I think that it is critical that the government, whether it be on the state level or the federal level, takes these types of cases seriously. Because again, it's not just about a couple freak-offs. It's about the fact that someone was brutalized and forced against their will to go different places and perform sex acts. That's not okay. So yes, absolutely. I think that the government should be spending millions of dollars to let folks know that it doesn't matter how wealthy you are or how broke you are. If you are abusing people, you need to be held accountable. Period. End of story.
Our next question is from J. Mack, Tyler. Diddy's lawyers in court documents has stated he has a tape on Cassie trying to extort Diddy for money. If she's caught doing that, what happens, or the tape proves exactly that? So this would be possible impeachment evidence.
Yeah, it'll hurt her credibility. Right now, we just heard Elizabeth say that she seems to be doing a good
She needs to be
job
brought
with
up
her
on those
testimony,
charges.
she
That has
seems very
nothing to do
believable.
with this.
But during cross-examination and possibly as impeachment evidence, if they pull out this video, I think it could show the jurors another side of her. And I think that's exactly what the defense is going to do. They have to show the jurors another side of Miss Ventura. As we said earlier, she's 8 months pregnant. She seems competent. She's a beautiful woman who went through horrendous things. And the defense has a job to defend Mr. Combs and hopefully, in their view, get him acquitted. And by doing that, they're going to have to pull out all punches with a velvet glove, with a hammer, or whatever they see fit. But they're going to bring this out.
I want to mention, too, we've been asking our viewers some poll questions in the YouTube chat. So
inside every bottle of Prose is a totally unique formula. One of millions of possible combinations of hundreds of...
12% so far are saying no, they don't believe it. So the lion's share of the voters believe Cassie. Our next question is from S. Lee. Melba, this one's for you. How does Cassie's testimony at trial affect her settlement agreement? And I'm assuming this is referring to the civil lawsuit. And of course, there was an NDA probably attached to that. So where they probably promised not to speak about this publicly and that type of thing. But oftentimes, you know, NDAs, when it comes to testifying in court, that doesn't, you know, that supersedes an NDA.
Yes, absolutely. So first off, whatever settlement agreement they had, you know, one would assume the money's been paid or a down payment has been paid, whatever the case may be. So that is pretty much concluded. Now, in terms of the NDA and her being able to testify, again, a government subpoena is a government subpoena. If you disobey a government subpoena, you can be held in contempt of court. So the NDA does not hold water when it comes to being subpoenaed to speak in court about, you know, a particular issue. However, how it would come into play is that the settlement may not necessarily be the feature or be discussed in the trial as a general premise. What's going to be discussed in the focus would be on all the underlying issues that were raised in the civil suit, so to speak.
Let's get to another question. This one is Wolves and Francis.
I just left the courtroom. There was such a tense showdown. I had to run out and tell you guys. Y'all, what am I talking about? Diddy and the prosecution just went off. They went in on each other, and maybe it was bad. Y'all, let's get into this, okay? First of all, what is going on? There was supposed to be Cassie coming back on the stand to testify. However, the judge got pissed off because he was like, wait a second, because Maureen Comey was on the ones and twos. I will say they need to have her do all of the questioning. The blonde girl is questioning Cassie again. I said yesterday, I felt like her line of questioning left a lot to be desired from a layman's standpoint. A lot of legal experts said that it was a very, very strong it was a very strong witness testimony on Cassie's part, and they thought that technically, legally, the blonde prosecutor did a good job. Hold on, I'm getting to my point, right? But however, you're not speaking to other legal experts. You're speaking to jurors. Jurors are laymen. So what might fly in the court, right? So what might fly in a court of law for legal professionals? Other people are like, laymen people are like, yeah, I don't know about that.
Mary
Anyway, you guys,
all
right?
the time to control her.
Yeah,
but she snapped out of it, didn't
she? There was
she?
an intense showdown between prosecution and defense. Diddy's defense is playing dirty. They tried to slip something in last minute that was so shocking. Even people in the court were like, oh my God. The judge was getting a little annoyed because the jury was waiting out in the hall and Cassie was going to start to wait out in the hall. However, Tenny Garrett goes and then Mark Agnifilo stood up and started arguing. You guys, it was a showdown. But get this, the judge literally was like, well, I don't know. What are we talking about? It is evidence. Now listen, they were on a deadline from April 27th. They had to mark all exhibits. Exhibits are things that are going to be entered into evidence. Now there is a difference between if you show a witness something on the stand to impeach them if they're lying, or if you show them something to refresh the memory. That doesn't need to be admitted into evidence. Only things that need to be entered into evidence are what the jury sees. What the jury sees is when they go and make the decision, jurors just can't go in that room and be like, yeah, I think they're innocent, I think they're guilty. They have to sort through all the evidence that's given, and they have to tell you one by one why they decided. And they have to move to each piece of evidence to be like, when they said A, that's what makes me think they're innocent. When they said B, they just can't come in and say, yeah, guilty, innocent. They have to show their work. That is why what is admitted into evidence is so very, very important. Because if it's not admitted in evidence, the jurors can't use that to actually say that this is the reason they came to their legal conclusion. They can't use it to show their work. Also, when things are admitted into evidence, the prosecution or defense need time to actually say, hey, listen, you could be like, objection.
Oh, she was high.
There are federal rules of procedure. There's also federal rules on what can and cannot be entered into evidence.
Oh, she was high.
You want to have proper notice. You want to give proper notice, which is why what the defense was doing was so dirty. And I'm surprised Judge Aaron actually went along with it, because to me, it is, hold on, there's like raindrops falling on my head. There is a legal precedence for that, and I'm surprised that Judge Aaron even went off on doing that and let that happen. So what ended up happening, right? On April 27th, there was a deadline that any exhibits, and exhibits are entered into evidence to give the jury, any of the exhibits would have to, I'm trying to get a good angle, but this rain is taking on me. We are at the...
Oh, she talking so fast, but she's there, so
what would you even do?
She's in court.
Live, I snuck out of court to give you guys a tea. Couldn't wait. So the defense is saying, defense only gave prosecution 4 exhibits. The 4 exhibits are what the defense plans to use to the jury to prove their case. Now, again, 4 is an incredibly small number. So because the defense yesterday did a last minute, oh my God, we don't want Alex Fine in the courtroom. And I think it was just Diddy showing his manipulation and control. Sorry, y'all, my makeup is whatever. Today, Maureen Comey, who is so good, stood up and was like, Your Honor, the defense has only given us 4 exhibits. Okay, we keep asking, where's the exhibit or the evidence you're going to use? The defense just keeps saying, oh my God, you know what? We'll give it to you while there is a cross-examination. One, that is a dirty, dirty game. How are you literally going to give evidence that we need to actually review to see if it's good, to see if it passes the federal rules of procedure, to see if there's anything technical that can stop it from being admitted? You're going to give it to us while our client is being cross-examined? So basically, it's legal sabotage. Maureen Comey stood up and said, you guys, we are not, as a prosecutor, she said, we are not having a trial by ambush, okay? You can win a trial by ambush because once something is admitted in evidence, you can't come back
Trial
and
by
say, no,
ambush.
take it out. You literally only get one chance. Natalie Lee, thank you for joining the Tattletales. Anyway, Maureen Comey stood up and said, absolutely not, and it got so tense. Hold on, let me try to open my umbrella and read y'all my notes. Thank y'all so much for coming out and supporting. Okay, right? Oh, I also have some notes on who was actually there. I saw Diddy's PR person. She's a woman, long dark hair, very curvy, very beautiful. She was wearing a black and brown curvy dress. Diddy's PR girl, she was there. How do I know? Because I was eavesdropping while she was explaining to the guards that she should be with the family because, you know, she works for the
She
family.
said
And
she
all
was
this other stuff.
eavesdropping.
Why is that important? Because Monday, and this is why it's so important for me to be on the ground, Monday she was in the cafeteria and she was having lunch with the producers of TMZ, the Breakfast Club, and the Shade Room producers. Again, Diddy's PR person, and I'm sure they were just talking, was having lunch Monday in the cafeteria. She doesn't know anybody who knows this is PR. I just found out by eavesdropping. She was having lunch in the cafeteria with TMZ's producers, Breakfast Club producers, and Shade Room producers. Why is that important? I don't know. Watch for their coverage. You know this is like blood. Now that Cassie's on trial, they're releasing a dumb video of Cassie at Diddy's 58th or 48th birthday, and they're supposed to be looking loved up. Again, I told y'all TMZ was 100% on Diddy's side, and I think we now have proof. But let me get back into this, right? Anyway, they put Diddy's PR person with the family after her explaining to the guards how she should have space because there was limited room in the courtroom. Also, Diddy came in wearing a butter yellow sweater, the color of the season, and a white shirt.
Butter yellow.
Submitted a letter saying on June 20th she has something and she cannot be there. They're thinking that they're still going to keep her on the jury and they'll work around it, but it's unclear. Defense or prosecution might object, and if they do, she'll be out of there and they will put an alternate in. All right? So here's the whole thing. Oh, Janice Holmes came in. She had on a bad platinum bomb pixie cut. She's actually a really small woman. She looked good. There were a lot of men coming in on Diddy's side today. A lot of guys. Oddly enough, I didn't see the twins, Jesse and Delilah, and also Chance. I have not seen them. Maybe they're coming in later. I also didn't see Misa Hilton Brim. I didn't see Daphne. Actually, I didn't see any of the women on Diddy's side. I guess they heard the coverage and they saw it was a bad look, that they were sitting there looking stone-faced while their father was being accused of the most horrible things, almost as if it wasn't a surprise, all right? Oh, y'all want to fit check? I'm in my legal eagle. Oh, sorry. Y'all can't see.
We
Anyway,
wearing the
I'm
same
wearing
color.
legal eagle dress. Okay, so anyway, so here's the thing. The prosecution was mad because they were saying that the defense did not produce exhibits that is evidence. Again, she was mad. She was like, yo, we're not doing. She basically said that they're playing dirty. They're trying to have a trial by ambush, right?
Trial by ambush.
If you have these examinations, if you have this evidence you're going to use, you need to use it now. Not when.
You can't tell me when to use it.
Not in the middle of a witness cross-examination. Why is that important? Because when
You can't tell me when to use mine.
All eyes.
This my tag.
You need all eyes on your witness on a cross-examination, especially when Cassie's being cross-examination, and they're going to tear her apart. Oh, it's Megan like Reagan. Wait, it's Megan like Reagan. Megan like Reagan said, "This is the content I want." Who's looking at who? Yes, exactly. So, anyway, when your witness is being cross-examined, okay, they are under hostile fire. You are supposed to be taking notes, paying attention. You're literally making your legal playlist on demand. You need all eyes on them. For you to give new evidence that I have to see whether it's real, I have to see whether it's admissible, I have to check and make sure it's valid. That is a legal dirty trick. It's one that I think the judge should have actually just shut down and said absolutely not. Like, and here's the thing, the prosecution was like, listen, if you have this mess, at least give it to us by the morning of. Do you know that Tini Garrigo stood up and was like, Your Honor, we're like they're elves in a shoe. Your Honor, we're working round the clock. Even last night we were up late, and even last night we were up late, and we don't know what we're going to use. So as we find out, we'll let them know. And unfortunately, it actually might be on cross-examination. And I was like, wow, the nerve and the balls of these people to do this. I was waiting for the judge to shut it down. They did not. So Maureen Comey wasn't done. She stood up and was like, Your Honor, no. You know what you're using. At the very least, we are within our rights to say, can you at least give it to us by by lunchtime, right? Because you might have it for cross-examination by lunchtime. It is coming down over here. Can you, I'm just telling you real quick, and I'm going to go back upstairs and take some more notes. She's like, you got to at least give it to us by lunchtime. And then the judge was like, yeah, that, and then Mark Agnew gets up, and he's like, sorry. They were like, what is it? They said there's a text message change. And again, there was a standoff. Mark Agnew turned up and was like, listen, we're not the same. The government has the burden of proof. We don't. And this is the evidence they gave us. And also Rule 16, that's what they were arguing, doesn't say we have to give it to you in a certain time frame. So you'll get it when you get it. It was tense, right? Remember how everybody was like, oh my God, the prosecutors and defense get along so well. Baby, this isn't WWE. This isn't like Celebrity Cage Match. Of course they're going to be cordial in the jury selection because you want all the juries to think that you're nice and sunshine. But when it comes down to court, baby, this is big business.
It's dirty, baby.
Homie was going
it's dirty.
to war. It was big business.
They slanging mud.
Going for war. She did not let it go. So Mark Agnew got spicy, like, excuse me, Rule 16. And also, he was like, I don't see any precedent in the Second Circuit saying we have to give it to you with any amount of time. The Second Circuit is where the Southern District of New York is. If you don't know anything about court precedents, all court rulings have some type of weight, right? Because judges all like to follow behind each other, right? Sometimes there is a new precedent, but most of the time the new precedent comes from the Supreme Court, right? So judges have to follow behind each other. Oh, Venus Lightning, thank you so much for the super chat, you guys. I'm out here working. Thank you so much for the super chat. Yes, I'm independent media. I paid for this whole trip myself. I really appreciate you guys. This fan funding if I didn't tell you. So anyway, right?
Oh, wow.
Your favorite TV shows are on YouTube. Enjoy the latest.
Yeah, I'm almost out of juice. I'm gonna have to come back later.
When it comes to the Second Circuit and when it gets to precedence, you want
10%. Come on, girl.
Closer to home it is. If you can say somebody in your circuit actually did something, then judges tend to let that weigh into the decision. Like, oh, okay, so Bob down the corner did it. All right, so maybe it's cool. However, as you get further and further and further out of your circuit, the precedent starts to decline. For instance, something that went down in Arkansas, right, really wouldn't have that much effect on what went down in New York, unless it was like a constitutional issue. But you can still use it. It might, right? So, Mark, thank you to Dream Dosage for the super chat. Also, I want to thank Jackie Gomez for the super chat. Also, really quick, Carla R, thank you for the super chat. So, Mark Agnew was basically like, there's no precedent in the Second Circuit. We don't argue nothing. Now, there might be something that we do later on, but there is nothing going on in the Second Circuit, right? And he thought he could like shut that shit down. And I was just like, first of all, Mark Agnew, you've been caught lying to this court, in my opinion, or misrepresenting the truth quite a few times. So, Maureen Comey, that's the prosecutor. I would check that up over you. That's what I was thinking. Maureen Comey was all on it. Before Mike even sat down, she popped up and was like, Your Honor, I'm going to have to check that. Because I don't know about that. Let me read the thing. So then the judge was like, well, Mark Agnew will be happy to share the footage with you. No, the precedent cases. And Maureen Comey smirked and was like, Your Honor, I can do the research. Don't worry, I'll get to the bottom of it. Because you can't believe a word Mark Agnew says. Anyway, hold on. I have more notes, you guys. Also, Maureen Comey was like, listen, I'm not asking if you want to impeach a witness. I explained what that is before. That's if you want to basically catch them perjuring or changing their story. I'm not saying if you just want to impeach only the witnesses. And I'm not saying if you want to do like recollections of it, right? I'm not saying that if you want to do recollections. I'm not saying that is an issue. But I am saying that if it goes into that jury pool and if it's going to count, oh, no. You're going to have to do something different. Kalila, to keep doing the Lord's work, so we appreciate you. Oh, thank you guys. So anyway, right? What, this was tense. Again, I know y'all think I'll be putting 20 on 10, and I do, but it was tense. But I loved it because finally the prosecution is fighting back.
20 on
I literally
10.
heard, no, if you bug, no, if you, but see, I'm a down, pistol holder. Literally, they was literally about to squabble up. So anyway, right? They said you're not. So then after Mark Agnelli was like, yeah, I don't know what the defense want, no, but the prosecution wants. She jumped up and she was like, I want those documents and I want them now, please. They have the documents and they're refusing to hand them over because they want to ambush Cassie. They want to make her look stupid on the stand. They want to have her break down. But more importantly, they're even defying Judge Arun's court orders. And I wonder when Judge Arun is going to notice that. You said that they were supposed to be there on the 27th and everything in, and now they're saying they didn't because they're working around the clock. But even if you're working, we even have paralegals now trying to check. Well, if you are, then where's the evidence? Are they going to rush in like this is like my cousin Vinny at the last minute? So anyway, Tini was like, I want the evidence and I want it now, please. That's exactly what she said verbatim.
Girl, how much longer?
No, I love when somebody dropped in. It was like really courtroom shade, professional drama, but it was tense.
Okay, y'all.
So then there's two more.
Hold on. Ooh, I'm almost out of juice, so let me get back over here. Oh my goodness, that was funny. That was funny.
Another question. This one is wolves in France. Is Diddy in civilian clothes in court? I'll take that one very quickly. The answer is yes. So he is in civilian clothes. Tyler, I want you to add to that because Sean Combs' appearance in court is very different from what we're used to seeing from Sean Combs on the red carpet. He's not wearing a suit. He's got white hair because I guess he can't get hair dye in DC. He's wearing like a sweater and slacks. I mean they're going for like the Mr. Rogers. I'm a dad. I'm in my mid to late 50s.
He's going for the look. Bill Cosby.
So that's all by
Mr. Hustable.
Yeah, it's by design, but also he is in the detention center right now, so he can't dye his hair. Pretty sure he's not used to living this quality of life that he's experiencing. He probably would prefer to have his hair dyed. If I'm just from the Sean Combs that we have grown to know through what he's portrayed to the media. And I think that's a big contrast to the star personality that he's portrayed over decades now and what you're seeing of Miss Ventura, who clearly still looks like a star while pregnant. It could help Mr. Combs' case, having him come off a little more sympathetic, but I mean, Bill Cosby was America's uncle or grandpa for years, and that didn't help him.
This is true. And remember, he always on the Cosby Show wore those sweaters and everything, and then look what happened.
It didn't help the Jello pudding pop. Hey, Danielle.
Something in court, but sometimes they don't. So let's go now to one of our updates from court, which I think is an interesting one that could play into one of our questions.
Danielle, did you speak to me?
Last things that Cassie
Why you
Ventura
dropping names in my chat? I can do that, but did you speak to me?
She took Valium before Freak Off, and
did you speak to me?
Emily Johnson.
Let's do that over, boo.
Freak Off and Cassie Ventura.
You didn't go about that the right way.
When I had anxiety,
oh no, ma'am.
Was bringing me the Valium. It was Keen,
no, ma'am.
I think
you will not.
His trigger, a staff member,
hold on, boo.
Her Valium.
Hold on. Hold on. Danielle, do you think that's the respectful thing to do over here? Did you speak to me? Did you drop your ass down to speak to me? Did you say AunTeaFee dope? Girl, bye. Y'all say bye to Danielle. Bye, Danielle. Bye. Get your ass up out of here. Bye. No, ma'am. I don't have no problem with her, but you not finna eat somebody else's ass. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Get your ass on.
I would assume maybe prescribed, maybe not. Valium is something you don't really hear much about anymore. But one of the questions from one of the viewers was, you know,
she tried it, didn't she?
Rose asking, do you think other people will be charged? And I'm assuming that's referencing staff of Sean Combs who are allegedly part of this RICO enterprise.
And again, got to give the legal answer. It depends. It depends what evidence they have against these individuals. It depends the statute of limitations. So if this is something where it's a matter of
her name is
you're
Tisa.
giving out, drugs without a prescription, right? That may be something that carries.
You don't come in not speaking to me.
Statute of limitations. If this is something that happened back in 2010. I mean, the statute of limitations is run. So that may be a situation where it doesn't necessarily make the most sense to go after somebody for that. And also there's the argument of knowledge, because again, if the person was handed a bag, hey, give this to Cassie, and they didn't know necessarily what was in it, that's a little bit different than the driver going out and actually procuring the drugs from a dealer and bringing it to Cassie. So it all depends on what the facts are, but in all likelihood, unless somebody provided very material assistance in terms of moving people or something like that, they're likely, I don't think anyone else is likely going to be charged. And again, to refer back to Bradford's point from earlier, you know, the question would be, if they end up cooperating with the prosecution, then that's another way to avoid criminal charges.
Let's go to another question. This has been something that's come up quite a bit. Other celebrities, and you know, other celebrities who may have been privy to these things, may have been a part of these things, and really everything we're hearing right now, Tyler, it sounds like this is Sean Combs, his romantic partners, and then sex workers brought into this. So we're not hearing really about other celebrities being brought into this, but Julio Katz ASMR is asking, will Justin Bieber testify? And that's something, Justin Bieber's name has come up obviously quite a bit, but I don't think we've seen his name on any witness list.
Yeah, I have not seen his name on anything. You know, we have heard about Michael B. Jordan and Kid Cudi, and supposedly Kid Cudi could give some testimony about a brief relationship that he had with Ms. Ventura and his car allegedly being blown up shortly after Mr. Combs found out about the incident, showing some circumstantial evidence that he could possibly have orchestrated that car bombing. But I have not heard anything about Justin Bieber testifying, but there could be other celebrities who show up in other fashions.
Let's get now to some of the things that happened in court after they broke for lunch. There was some talk off, outside of the presence of the jury about videos on devices and things like that. The defense, Sean Combs' defense team, was saying, we just heard this morning about videos on his devices. This is relevant. Assistant U.S. Attorney Slavic responded, we can agree to more, something less than 10 pages. Hecker Fink, and for the witness known as Mia, so Hecker Fink is the lawyer for Mia, said there is a jury instruction about the victims. Then the Hecker Fink lawyer said Mia would have
okay, I'm very low.
I don't
so I'm gonna
know
have
how
to go
support her.
charge it up.
We can't discuss her pain, what she went through.
Charge it up, and I'll be back later on.
Nerves are through the roof.
Peace out. Peace and Hercules, good people.
That sounds like who maybe
it's saying it's very, very low.
Very, very, very difficult time.
So it's about to go out. I need to go and charge, get some juice, and I will be back. Let's salute.
Would that be acceptable?
The Hecker Fink lawyer responded,
I'm afraid
hey,
she'll
Justin.
have a moment, lose it.
Yeah, I'll be back later.
I worry.
Like, share,
and then there's another
subscribe.
add on to that. Now to counsel,
put your notification on at the top button.
Jane Doe will not know what she
support the platform. Hit the like button if you didn't. Hit it coming in. Please hit it going out.
Testimony.